Welcome to another episode of Powerful Eyes podcast. Today we've got Carl Scott, aka Two's Duo.
Former gang member Carl had his first brush with the law aged just 9. It was after a stint in prison he turned his life around, but says breaking away from a life of crime is not easy.
Most of the time the friendship networks that you're involved in are all in the same thing. So if you make that decision to step away from that lifestyle, you're also stepping away from your friends. And if you step away from your friends, you've now got no friends. And if you've got no friends, you're now isolated.
Hello, mate.
How are you, mate? Appreciate you coming down today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Mate, I know you've had a bit of a drive.
Yes, missions, 3 hours.
Apologies.
It's fine.
I really want to sort of get your whole life story. I know you've had quite a colourful past. So
Could say that.
best place to start at the beginning. Whereabouts you grow up and let's run from there.
Right, Nottingham, really. So, born and bred. Council estate. Dad weren't there. On and off, were there, not there. Kind of left at early age, really. Mum was really, really early when she had me. So, about 16, just turned.
Young.
So, very young, yeah. To the point, actually, my granddad was going to... not my granddad, my uncle was going to adopt me, which was my mum's brother. But because my granddad really kind of took a shine into me, really, and he was like, nah, you ain't doing that. So, you know, stick with your duties, as to say, and like bring the baby up. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents at that point, because my mum was still young, really. She'd only just left school. So first time she'd even had sex, with, you know, and she fell pregnant, like,
Yeah.
and ended up with me. She's like, geez, what a shock, you know.
That's proper young.
Yeah, really
Yeah,
young,
yeah,
yeah. But I look
yeah.
at them these days; they're even younger. Do you know what I mean? But like, yeah, it's like kids having kids. But I think back then, like, you know, they was brought up differently back then. So I think mentally, like,
I don't think the exposure to what they're actually doing was there.
no.
You know, again, was she probably 15 when...
15 when she fell, yeah. And then she was 16 when she gave birth to me. But my dad was like, he was a bit of a drinker and a bit of a gambler, bit of a shitbag. Loved having a bit of a tear up and that.
Same sort of age as your mum?
He was 18, I think.
Well, okay.
Yeah, but he was a boxer, always getting nicked all the time. He was just a bit of a face, really. But he was horrible to my mum at the same time. So there was quite a lot of domestical incidents that was happening at home in front of myself. A few times, you know, left at home as a child. And you know, it took one time, my uncle had come back from the army because he was a Royal Green Jacket. And the next door neighbour had heard cries from the house coming. She couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And my mum had a job as well. And it turned out that my dad, where he was left to look after me, he'd disappeared and went out. But he put me upstairs in the bedroom. And I was still in the same shitty nappy for however many hours I was up there for. Do you know what I mean? I don't remember too much about it. But so she notified my uncle, which was the closest person that she'd known about, because everyone knows who our family were. So my uncle would come and booted the door off, the front door, and then found me upstairs in the middle of a dark bedroom, crying in a shitty nappy.
Do you think your dad resented sort of you as a child? You know, I can't imagine being 18, 19 and...
I don't know. Do you know what? I've never really got to the bottom of it. It's not something I actually really talk about, to be honest with you. It's just, you know, one of them where it's done, it's dusted, just drop it and let's just move on with your life. Do you know what I mean? You can't... I try and have circumstance where you just don't live in the past with it, but it's my story. So there's quite a lot of bits that I've never spoken about because it's never really come up in a conversation to chat. It don't make, you know what I mean? But I think in that sense, I don't really know too much about him to even know what his mindset were with what he was even thinking. But my uncle didn't, he weren't up for that. So, you know, he's come in the house and he's managed to, my mum come back. He gave her a slap. And for leaving me. It weren't my mum's fault because she thought obviously my dad was at home with me. And then my uncle waited for my dad to get back. And then he gave my dad a good hiding in the house as soon as he come back. And then my uncle took me to his house then, and I stayed with him for a little while. And then I eventually went back to my mum from then. And then there was a few incidents that had happened with my mum. And it was my mum was trying to get away from him.
Yeah.
Really difficult. And she did love him. Obviously, she loved him. You know, I think he was, there was like childhood sweethearts in a way. Like they've been together for a little while, and then obviously I came along. So you could say, well, it was my fault, but really, do you know what I mean? It depends how you look at it. Do you know what I mean? Was it because she was pregnant with me? Like everything just went downhill? Because kids can sometimes bring a lot of strain on relationships.
I was just going to say the pressure, if you were 21, 22, 23 is pressure,
Definitely.
but to be that young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who knows? I don't know, but it weren't a very nice time. And, you know, I went through quite a lot at that point, But then, like, you know, she broke up with him. She met my stepdad. You know, he kind of took me on as his own, and you know, my brother and sister came along, and then I just I don't know. I think the dynamics in the house was a little bit different then, because I had a brother and sister at this point now, and obviously they was my stepdad's kids, and it was just, I don't know, my behaviour. I'd been through so much, and I think when a child goes through so much, and stuff that they can see or class as traumatic, that can take drastic effects on the way that they think or the way they behave. And I think that's exactly what was happening to me as a kid, and it was slowly starting to come in.
Yeah.
And my behaviour was changing. I always blame it on the fact, and I do it now, and I am old enough and ugly enough to know my own behaviours, do you know what I mean? But I always put it down to like me being treated differently because I weren't the child of my stepdad. But I think in all due respect, I think I was a bit of a mug at the same time as well. Do you know what I mean?
But I think that does happen, and I think no step parent. I've got 4 girls, 2 with one ex and 2 with another ex.
Yeah.
So I've seen it where, you know, my ex-missus was fantastic with my 2 youngest, and then all of a sudden we had our own kid, and it does change the dynamic. It does. It shouldn't, and they won't. I don't even think anything happens on purpose.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden you've got your
yeah,
family.
of course, and I understand that. I do, but I think that's as a result from that, it was, you know, the rebelliousness started, you know, and I just started to misbehave and back chatty, and back in them days you could get whacked without social services getting involved. Do you know what I mean? Shove that, and it'd be like no. You'd be like literally running away trying to hide your ass before getting a slap. Do you know what I mean? And I think, you know, it was just kind of like the push really for me to not really want to be at home much, really, and that was still quite young, so I'd be out causing chaos from really early, from like 8 years old. So
oh really? Are that young?
Yeah. But I found it exciting. It was like adrenaline rush, you know.
Do you find it sometimes as well? You see it with children, especially where it's almost their cry for attention. They're naughty because it's the way that gets all eyes on you, you know.
Yeah, because the attention. I mean, look. In the 90s, things are odd. You know, we lived in council houses and stuff like that, and you know, parents are working no end of hours to try and put food on the table as it was. Do you know what I mean? And I think where there's no money in the house, there's no pocket money in your pocket.
Yeah.
So at that point, you know, asking for simple things and getting the answers no, can't afford it. Well, you know, all your friends are having that stuff, and they are having chocolate bars or cans of drink and stuff, but yet you're not. But you want it. So if I can't get the money from my house, like I can't even get 10 pence for a chomp bar, never mind anything else. Do you know what I mean? So I'll chore it instead.
10p, that's the good old days.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. But 10p you wouldn't think was much. Or them, like, what were they called? Them frosty ice poles. You know, like there used to be 5 pence back in the day. Now I think they're about 30p, but like about 5p back in the day, couldn't even afford one of them, even squeezing 5 pence out for one of them, you know. So that's where it then started for the attitude of, you know, just take, really. But then my parents was really musical, so they was always in bands, and they was always on the circuits and stuff out and doing club scenes and singing and rock bands and just whatever else they was doing. So they was hardly at home at the best of times, whether they'd be working normal jobs or whether they'd be out doing music. So we had babysitters quite a lot. And if we didn't have babysitters, I'd be at my grandparents. And if I weren't at my grandparents, I'd be at my uncle's. So it was
bouncing around.
Yeah, all over. It's just, how can you say it? It's like inconsistencies, you know?
Yeah.
Don't know whether you're coming or going half the time. And then my uncle, I had an uncle, and he was quite a big pothead. You know, he was drinking a lot, always down at the pub scrapping, always come back with a black eye at some point, and, you know, but you find trust in adults, especially if they're family members, you know? And, so there was times that he he was slowly grooming me, really, in a way, my uncle, and he was getting me fed up on pot and alcohol, and you're giggling away. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Grooming you into what?
For abuse.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
So I didn't know none of that was going on. I thought, at that age, it was kind of portrayed to me as something that was a normal, natural thing to
And you
happen.
trust everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like the words he used to use for me was like, "Oh, well, this is what people do when you love each other. I'm your uncle, you're my nephew, and all right, what?
Yeah.
How am I going to question that? Do you know what I mean?" And then that stuff went on for about 3 years, and it was quite intense. He was like full hog, like fully abused by him. And then he had a mental health breakdown. He was gutted on alcohol and on the old smoke and that. But it turned out that he'd been doing stuff with the next door neighbour's kid as well. He was a bit older than me. He was about 15, but obviously illegal. He was still underage. It was illegal.
Yeah.
But he wasn't into the signs of being attracted to the same sex. He was still interested in girls. This boy. So he turned the manipulation back onto my uncle, and he kept bringing girls around to my uncle's house, literally just winding him up. And it got to a point where my uncle just exploded with it, because he obviously genuinely liked this kid, as PDFs do. Do you know what I mean? But I think he couldn't handle that, so he went and handed himself in at the police station, and he completely left me out of the old story. And they come round to his house. They found, I think it was about 30 bags of homegrown smoke in the shed. He ended up, he got 4 years for what he'd done to the neighbour. But my case got dropped. But for it coming out, my mum asked me a question outright. One day I come back from school, and she just said, has he ever done anything? I was well shocked. I was like, what are you on about? Like, no. And I was freaked out. My heart was racing, and I just thought, all I kept hearing in my head, like, yeah, no one will believe you, mate. Like, don't ever say anything.
It's the maddest thing.
Yeah, it was like really scary when that came out. It freaked me out. But I told her the truth in the end. But that didn't get me anywhere. Anyway,
How old was you then?
13.
13.
Yeah. So that from 13 onwards, that's when my life became drastically like downhill. Really, really bad.
Yeah, but it's understandable. I mean, no kid should fucking go through that. That's awful. It's awful, especially from a family member.
Yeah,
like
the thing is that when you look back and you look at how your behaviours were, and now obviously I'm older, so I understand, and I work with a lot of kids now, so I can see it a mile away. I can see certain behaviours as like, and I'd be thinking that ain't right. Like, we need to look at this.
You're a parent yourself, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just about. I hated adults from then. I just thought people that you feel should be there as a protection.
Yeah.
Protect
Well, you should be able to trust.
Yeah.
Again, even more so a family member. The trust should be there, and it's going to affect your life.
Yeah, and it did. So it was 13. Got myself wrapped up with a lot of older lads down at the local youth club. They had a boxing gym down there, loved it. And we couldn't afford to go, so I was chawing money out my mum's purse to pay for it. And it was only quite cheap back then. It was like £2 a session or something, do you know what I mean? Or £1.50 or something like that. But I could never get 5 pence for an ice pole, as I said, do you know what I mean? So trying to get that money to pay for the session. So at first the coach was giving me some free sessions, and he saw potential in me, and he could see that I was pretty good. I stuck everything into it, do you know what I mean? And back then I was quite scared. I didn't even want to punch anyone in the face. I'd usually kick people in the shin and run away. I didn't do that stuff. It was freaked me out. Like the feel of someone's face in my fist, it was just like, that's wrong. But I slowly started to get into it, and it became something that I really enjoyed. So there was a tournament that had come up for our local area, and he wanted to put me in it. But obviously there comes consent forms and parents, and so, and they didn't know I was doing this. So there'd be a couple of times I went back with a bit of a bust lip and stuff, and I had to like say, I fell over or something. Do you know what I mean? But it weren't. It was from sparring and that. So so the coach was like, don't worry, I'll speak to your parents. We'll get them to come down and watch a little sparring session and just show that you've got potential, and we want to bang you into this thing because you're really good. And I was just like, oh, mate, I was freaking out for about 2 days because I thought I was going to get a good hiding, because in the end I was stealing the money to pay for it.
Yeah, of course.
I shit my pants. But anyway, they come down and they saw me at it. They signed the paperwork. I did the first tournament and I won it. And from then on, I was constantly going back and forth with the gym, but because it was involved in the youth centre, I was kind of getting swayed a little bit away from the gym into like what the older kids was up to, and I was intrigued. I would see them there with the expensive stuff, the drinks, and I'm thinking, like, what are they up to? Do you know what I mean?
You look up to the wrong people at that age, don't you?
Yeah,
we've all done it.
That's exactly what happened. So they knew that, and I was a little kid. I'm not that tall now, but when I was that age, I was really tiny, blonde hair, blue eyes, baby faced, butter wouldn't melt in your mouth kind of stuff. But actually, underneath, I'm nuts. In the head, I'd do anything, and that's how I started to build my reputation with, knowing that I am small. I'm with these people. These people will look after me. We're like a little family. I can go off and do whatever I wanted to, and I wouldn't get no comeuppance for it because I'm protected by all these lot. And that's how it started to get into nitty gritty stuff on the streets.
What's when you say nitty gritty, what sort of stuff was you doing? You stealing, you fighting, you?
So it'd be anything. Well, stealing was obviously the first thing I was doing. My first ever major was a robbery and a fray, and I was 14. That I got a right good hiding for that, because that was the first time really that my parents got the gist that I was up to no good and doing some robbery and a fray, and this is in the street as well. So just doing street robberies and robbing people, and then you getting the police coming to your house at 5 o'clock in the morning to take you away. Your parents are like, "What the fuck is going on here?" Like, he weren't doing that. Yeah, I were.
Not my boy.
Yeah, I were. Do you know what I mean? And the worst thing, I didn't really get anything out of doing that. It was no point for what it were. And in it, when you look back at the decisions that you made from that age, it was some stupid decisions.
But I think you're so vulnerable, and you're trying to impress these people.
And I wanted to be known as well. It was a reputation thing as well. And I think having a reputation manages for you to be able to have like a barrier that no one can come through.
Yeah.
So having that there is keeping people at arm's length. And it's like, I mean, Carl's nuts. So you'll go and do that. Oh, if there's anything, there's that car that he's setting on fire or something. Oh, yeah, it's all right. Carl will do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, it's going, off it goes. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people took advantage of that.
I'm sure.
I didn't see that. I'm thinking these are all my pals, and at the end of the day, I'm getting nicked for all these crazy things, but they're still rocking around, chilling on the corners, having a drink and having a laugh. And
would you steal for them? Like they're telling you to go and do this, and you're bringing it back. And
well, we used to do. They're back in the day, when car stereos used to be a thing, and they used to have like the snatch plates and that. Like the Panasonic or the Toshiba and Sony pop-offs and
JVC.
stuff. Yeah, mate. Yeah, so we was quite infamous of robbing the cars for the stereos, and they'd obviously be stolen, and then they'd be given to somebody else, and then they'd be sold, and then you get a little bit of pocket change, nothing major. Do you know what I mean? We're talking about the 90s there, so like it weren't much money to us. A tenner was a bloody £1,000. So anything for us to just be able to go in a shop and buy our own thing or a bag of chips at the end of the night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was easy. So it's only a tenner, and so we was doing quite a lot of the car stereos, and it was becoming a regular thing. That was a good money earner. And in the end, we had a police operation because we were smashing the life out of these stereos. And it was only me and my pal that was doing it. And we was quite infamous for the stereo thefts. And in the end, we got a bit greedy, and we kept going back to the regular places where all these car stereos are known to be. And we got chased down by a load of coppers. And then we got nicked for every single car we'd done. So that was quite a big thing. And again, I got arrested. And then at that point, because I was so bad, and the trouble I was getting into, my parents decided to move us out of Nottingham because I was uncontrollable. And they had an opportunity to run a pub in Sheffield. So we decided to move up to Sheffield in Netherthorpe. And they managed a pub up there. Went up there, and it weren't really no better, to be honest.
Gonna say that environment again. You're around.
But they put me in a school with people with a different accent to mine. You know, they're talking completely different to me. They go road, I go road. It's a completely different accent. So I had people taking the piss out of me for my accent, which I'm thinking like, no, bro, like you can't be taking the mick out. That's like bullying, isn't it?
Yeah, big
so
time.
you're banging someone in a corner now. So I'm going to be.
How old are you?
About 14. So I'm still quite young at this point. And then, so, you know, or just after 13, 14, it was around that age. But then we've got up there. And then in the end, I had this little, this kid. I say little. He was a year younger than me in school, but he was a right little shitbag. And he kept fucking, every time I saw him, he was whacking me with newspapers and stuff. And he had the elders, like the year 10s, and on backing him up. So everyone was staying away from this kid. And in the end, I got the ump with him. And he was doing me nuts. So I ended up banging him out. So from me banging him out, I can now not go back to that school. So I've got to avoid the school, which I did. So I tutored from school for about 6 months. And I didn't get caught for any of them days bar one day. So when I got caught on the one day, they caught me for the whole 6 months. And my parents found out that I'd wagged it off school for that whole time. So I just, like, you know, that got me and dropped out of the school. It's called Myers Grove in Sheffield. And yeah, sometimes in there, I tell you. But then, yeah, there was, you know, I just got mixed up with a few lads from the flats and stuff, and, you know, a couple of Somalians here and there.
And what are you doing when you, like, say, you got 6 months off school?
Yeah.
You're not doing nothing productive.
I was robbing the pub. So all the money in the pub, I was stealing it. So my parents, my mum's passed away now, so I'll tell the story. But she already kind of knew anyway. Do you know what I mean? My stepdad's still alive, but I think you know and all. But like they used to do bingo nights. You know, like bingo nights. So like, because the pub had a massive like concert room in there. They had another big room on the other side. They had the bar area, and they'd run the bingo nights. So every time that they used to make a load of wedge, they'd keep wedges of their cash in their bedside tables. So I was known as the rich kid at school because I used to rock up to school with £200 a day, every day, without fail. And I'd be swerving these notes out, thinking that no one realised. And my mum did have an inkling. She told me a couple of years ago, but I still didn't admit it. I was like, no, it weren't me. But I used to take a lot of money to school. And I always used to have like the new coats and the new jackets because down in Nottingham, the stuff used to come out first before it was out in Sheffield. So when I'd be in like back Chicago Bulls days and Michigan and all that, I used to have all them coats back in the day. And everyone used to say, oh yeah, you're the coat boy. Oh yeah, you're the rich boy from the pub and all that. And it's like, I'm not the rich boy. I'm stealing my parents' money. Do you know what I mean?
Literally, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like touring and like buying everyone fags and stuff. And because I started smoking quite early, and I was.
Obviously, again, though, that's searching for that popularity again.
Yeah, and I had it, but it ruined it when I punched that kid up, and you know, and I couldn't go back to the school after that because I had everyone gunning for me, so I had to just wag it off. So, luckily for me, there was people that I could go to. I had like the bouncers of our pub, Mark. He's a good friend. Still to this day, I still talk to him. Like he messaged me yesterday, and he used to have a flat in the high-rise flats. So I'd go and stay at his house until school had finished, and then I'd make up that I'm getting off the tram and go back into my house. So I used to swerve it through like that. But yeah, you just weren't any better. So you're thinking like moving away from Nottingham, your life's gonna change, or you're gonna be making better decisions. But nah, realistically, seriously, I've got like issues and traumatic things that have happened, and there's nothing like I need therapy. But what they tried to do is they knew that there was something wrong with me. But what they did was they put me into behaviour therapy. Behaviour therapy weren't going to kick it. I don't need behaviour therapy. I needed trauma therapy. I've been through 100%, some mad abuse. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the therapist that I had, I didn't like her. She was a bitch. So I didn't gel with her. She was quite, how can I put it? Like really like condescending. Or I just couldn't gel with her. It's like,
I think you can tell when someone's doing a job for money and when someone actually cares.
She weren't interested at all. So we used to clash all the time. And we used to have rows. And then, so I jogged her on in the end.
You see the old therapist checking the watch.
Time, innit? I don't want to see you anymore. And then we moved back to Nottingham, and you know, and things just got worse from then. And obviously all the lads that I'd grew up with from school and stuff like that, we was all already involved in the streets anyway at that point, carrying weapons and having fights with different people, and the drug dealing started. We had a few Jamaicans that had now moved into our ends as well, so like, you know, and they're
areas changing,
big time, and it was more around drug fueled stuff, so a lot more dealing going on, and more violence as well. There was quite a few shootings. that was going on around that time as well. So when you're out there on the street, so for example, if you're not on the street and you're just wrapped up indoors, you wouldn't be aware of all of the stuff that's going on. We didn't have social media then.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's going on unless it's word of mouth.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that going on. And it'd be like, oh, did you hear about like Joe Bloggs? He got shot last night. We're like, bloody hell, did he? Jesus Christ. And then, 3 days later, did you hear about Thingy? He got stabbed in the neck. He was like, oh, really? But you just carry on with your life.
Yeah. Of course,
it was just part of what.
We said that when we had, obviously we had Lewis Clark on.
Yeah.
And when he talks about very similar, like that was the norm.
Yeah.
The norm back then, it sounds like something out of a computer game.
Yeah.
Like that's your life you're living.
And you just get used to it.
And it's all you know.
Yeah. You just get, it's your environment. Yeah. And I think unless you get yourself out of the environment, you'll be trapped in it for a very long time. And that what I was trapped in it for a very, very long time. And I think, and to be fair, in all honesty, I didn't really want to be not trapped in it. I was quite happy where I was.
They're your pals. They're your pals, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they say that is literally all you know.
They classed gangs and whatever. But it's not like
You're at home, like you say. You're not. You've got a bit of grief indoors. Maybe it might be okay, but it's not perfect. You probably find yourself very vulnerable up here, and then all of a sudden you've got that little close sort of group of pals. You kind of think that's your family, don't you? Especially at that age.
But it kind of worked because I was with them more than my family. So
100%. I
was even going around with pals, and his mum would be making me dinner, or I'd go to my other pals' aunties, and we'd be sitting there and we'd be buying takeaways from the chicken shop, or we used to have really good Jamaican shops down where I'm from. And we like jerk and stuff like that, and mate, like proper food. Do you know what I mean? So we'd be just chilling, doing all that, and then we'd be, telling your parents, I'm staying out. Oh, where you staying? I'm just going to stay at my mate's house. But actually, you're not. We're going around the streets and we're robbing cars. So literally joyriding in cars, and God forbid getting caught, because you get a right good hiding. But luckily, we didn't. We had a few car chases. I'd never drove a car in my life. I learnt to drive a Metro. On my mate's brother's driveway, just driving it forward and reversing it back. That's how I learned to drive. And so then, the minute that I did that, we went and stole a D-Reg Astra, which was the easiest cars to nick at that point. And the Maestros, Austin Maestros and Montegos.
That takes me back.
Yeah. So they was like the easy cars back then. The Ford ones was the really difficult ones because they had the strongest steering wheel lock. So it was really difficult to snap. And where you've got the ignition barrels, you used to have to use scaff bars to break them. So it was really, really difficult. So we'd go with the easier cars. And bearing in mind, I'd never really drove on a road before, so I didn't know what to be doing. And then the first ever time when we had the Astra, we had a police chase. And that night, I'd actually climbed out my bedroom window, down onto the roof where you've got them plastic roofs, down onto the roof, down into the alleyway, shot up to my pal. We've gone and dealt with the car. I had the police chase, ended up jumping out of the car at the local college, managed to get away from him, jumped back over to my fence, back up and through into my window like nothing had happened. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, laying in my bed with my covers on me, my heart's racing, thinking, oh my God, if the police have seen where I've come into, luckily they didn't, do you know what I mean? But, then they knew that it was us that had done it, and then obviously words was to have, and you keep an eye on your kids and all this stuff. But that was exciting for me back then, and it was something everybody else was doing, and you can look at it as the fact of you can class yourself as a bit of a follower, because that's what I were. I was very easily led, and I was a follower. And I wanted to be liked because I was very easily bullied.
I feel it's something everyone does at that age. Everyone's vulnerable. I was similar. I remember at sort of 15, 16, I was a regular in pubs. I was a pretty heavy drinker. At 16 years old, I was a pretty heavy drinker. We'd sort of left school and we'd gone to work, and our life. My mum must have been sitting there thinking, "What are you doing?" But my friends at the time were probably 23, 24, head to toe in tattoos, and the Bulldogs and,
on my arm.
that was the era, wasn't it? That was it. I sort of come from an half decent school, and all of a sudden, all my pals, they look like they want to kill you. We're going around, we're going into nightclubs and they're selling drugs, and, it's but at the time, I've never done drugs, never been my thing. But at the time you do sort of think, that's quite cool. And you do look up to the wrong people.
You do. And, back then, for me, was more the odd bit of alcohol here and there, but it was more around having a bit of bud and that. And, excuse me, we'd all do it together. And then where we was kind of like making a lot of enemies out on roads, you're constantly then on the back of paranoia, you're watching your back all the time, and you're pissing people off. And I was pissing people off with the stuff I was doing. And I used to just pick fights with people for nothing. And when like now, I think, what a knob, mate! Like I can't believe I even behaved.
You hate that
like,
person.
Yeah, I hate that. Like people always say, if you can go back and say something to your younger self, what would you say? And I'm like, to be honest with you, I fucking wouldn't say anything because he wouldn't have listened. Do you know what I mean? He had to make his own decisions and like make the mistakes for himself.
Yeah.
And it's taken me 30 years to realise what them mistakes were and try and, repent and make up for them. So, but I think where you're picking these fights with people, I picked fights with the wrong people with not expecting there to be a comeback from what was happening. And there were comebacks and, knife crime was back. It was there then back in the day. It wasn't as prominent as it is as today. And the reason why it's so prominent from today is because, like I said earlier, we've got social media. A lot of this stuff can be posted now. We have Snapchat. A lot of people bang out things on Snapchat now. Now, if we had that stuff back in the day, Jesus Christ, like we'd have done some mental things. But it weren't, luckily, because the generation, I think, will be 50, 60, 70 times worse than they are now.
How old are you?
42.
42. Still, I'm 45, so similar sort of age. People didn't mind a fist fight back then.
Oh, yeah, no.
There's a difference. People were happy to use a knuckle rather than a blade.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone, but like most people,
Depends on the environment you're in at the time and what estate you're in.
But this is the thing. Once someone starts carrying, then someone's got to protect themselves with a knife.
Well, that's what we all did.
Yeah, and all of a sudden everyone's carrying a blade.
But when I carried knives, I carried knives not on the intention of using them. I carried them because it was like a label, and it was something that you've got in your waistband or in your pocket. Not even really understanding so much around the danger of what you're doing.
Almost more to show your pals.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Or like you're let's say you're on a park or something, because obviously we're not going to be in a pub, are we? But we're in a park or something. And we're rolling through a park and there's like a group of lads with some girls or whatever on there. And obviously we're like eyeing them up as you do, like it's just immaturity. And then one of them looks at you and then you pull your T-shirt up and you just let them see that there's one there and they jog on and move out of the park. That there is as far as it goes, as to say. But then the issue that you have with that is now word goes around that you carry. So
if someone's going to fight you, they've got to fight you with a blade.
They're going to bring a blade, yeah. And I was never known for using knives on people. I was known for having them, but not using them. And I was known because, like I said, I boxed. I can have a fight. It's like I know how to use my hands, and I'd much rather use my hands because I got enjoyment out of fighting. And where I didn't like originally punching people in the face, I got the taste for it, and it was actually all right. Especially when you made someone bleed, it gave you more of that adrenaline. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the mindset I had then, and it's a horrible mindset to actually have. It's an evil mindset, really. Like with the pain that someone's going through, even as a young kid, you're having a scrap with someone, and the scrap can be that bad. The other kid's crying their eyes out, and for you to stand there and it makes you want to hit them more because they're crying. That's nuts. In some circumstances, with some people's feelings, it'd make them stop because they'd feel sorry for them. Well, not me. I didn't feel sorry for him at all.
But that's the messed up head.
Yeah.
I
wanted to hurt people.
Yeah.
I just...
It's an inner frustration.
Yeah, I didn't have no love at all for anyone, which is bad, really.
What about yourself?
Nah. But I had nothing to lose, really. I didn't really care where I were. If I was dead, alive, in jail, like, whatever. I didn't really care.
Yeah.
I weren't scared of the police at all. They didn't bother me in the slightest. And... at this point, I wasn't living at home anymore. My parents had broken up, and I'd been moved into like the local authority hostels. And you know what it's going to be like in a local authority hostel. Do you know what I mean? At being 15 years old, it's not going to be the best place.
No.
I'm going to be around the same people as me. So it kind of went from that, and then I had a load of good mates around me. I had a really, really good pal that I grew up with from a very early age. He started chilling with this newbie on the scene that I just didn't like the geezer. There was just something not right about him. Do you know what I mean? And you can always tell when you're involved in that life and you have people around you, you're really skeptical of people, especially if they're new, because the things that you do or the things that you get up to is quite like it's quite low key. Do you know what I mean? And then when you get in new faces involved, the more people that are involved is like the more people that know. So that's not what you want to have. You need less people to know, to be fair.
Loose
like,
lips, sink ships.
100%. That's why, like, if you're going to go out and you're doing little moves here and there, you do them on your own, because if you get caught, you've got caught because of you, not because of anybody else, or not because he knows and he knows. Now you're thinking, well, has he said anything or has he said anything? You don't need to go through that if you do your stuff yourself. Do you know what I mean? But this geezer was that kind of kid, and he was really dodgy, and but my pal wouldn't listen. As a result, this kid had ended up robbing some Jamaican. He ended up taking a bit of drugs and some money. And then we was all like congregated on a corner at one point, and this car had come racing up. They all jumped out the car with knives. We've scattered, left and right. My pal froze, freeze. He froze, staring. They stabbed him in the chest. They jumped off. They ran. And then as a result, then my friend died. But then the boy was nowhere to be seen from that. So
Difficult.
Nah. But he was, if it wasn't for him, he'd still be alive. It was his fault. So, and it's just how it happens now from these days, where you've got rappers, for example, you've got different, I don't know, like different boroughs said in London that are doing little drill fucking raps to each other. Like, if I'm seen in that person's rap video, even though I'm not even singing, but like I just know of them, but they've got an issue with these boys. I've been seen in the video. I'm walking down the Oxford Street, for example, and a few of them see me. They'll be like, "Fuck me, that's that kid out."
Association.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's like it all the time, even if it's non-intentional. Like, you're not doing anything wrong personally. I don't give a fuck who they are.
But it's exactly how you would have been back in the day.
Yeah, it's worse now.
You're just looking for the egg, ain't you?
Yeah,
like,
definitely. And then, and as a result, and that's what happened to my mate, because he'd been seen with him. They associated him with him from robbing that stuff. So
was that a turning point, or?
No, because he died in my arms, on my legs. So that was quite hard at that point.
I bet.
In that, yeah. Make
you more angry.
Yeah, and if it was the way that he died as well. It was it was quite difficult. It's not a sight that a kid should be seeing at that age. Do you know what I mean? And I think
what are you now? 15.
Yeah, 15 and a half. Yeah, coming up to like 16 and that now.
Yeah.
Still at that age, Jesus. You don't want to see stuff like that.
When you look, like 8, 9, 10.
Yeah. I'm 42 now, and I still remember it.
Yeah.
Like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Like I can still visualize it. I can have dreams about it still, and it's still something that plays on my mind from time to time. Today I feel all right. Usually I get a bit choky, but I'm all right. I think it must have been the 3-hour drive. But I think, it does catch me sometimes.
You must have had magic on, chilled you out.
Yeah, no, actually I had smooth, so I was all right. Yeah, do you know what I mean? But no, it does get me from time to time. I don't know, it depends what mood I'm in. If I've had one of them days, it'll catch me, and then it'll just come from nowhere, and I'll have this bubble coming right through it, and then all of a sudden I'll go with it, and then you'll have to give me a few minutes, and then I'll carry on with the story. Today I'm all right, but it's one of them, like, you can do podcasts, and like, because I've only been talking about this for a couple of years, and I'd never spoken about it ever since that had happened. Even any therapy that I've had or nothing, I've never spoken about it. And because now you see this going on a lot, and there's so many people that are being in the same shoes as what I'm in, at the age that I were then, they are now. They're seeing it now themselves. And I share these stories so people know that they're not on their own, and there's other people that have been through that. And
what would you say to them? Talk?
100%, yeah, definitely. Get it off your shoulders as quick as you can.
Yeah.
Don't try and be like, the big I am and I'm odd and I don't need to talk about it, because in 20 years' time you're going to know about it. And
it hurts you, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It still hurts now. I'm 42.
Yeah.
So you'll never get out of it. You'll never get away from it unless you deal with it. And I've only dealt with it now over the last 2 years by doing this, just by talking.
Just talking, yeah.
For it, yeah. I talk about it, because on the other side of it, it keeps his name alive. My son, my 16-year-old, he's named after my pal, so I've named him, and he's 16 years old. So he's lived in my boy for 16 years. So so it's just kind of keeping it on like that. So that, and he was innocent. He didn't deserve to die.
That's what makes it so bad.
Yeah. Didn't deserve to die. The kid.
But this is the thing.
Yeah.
This is what they don't realise, and this is the importance of these podcasts. Like just wrong place, wrong time, wrong friends. Your life's fucked.
Done.
You know, they might have caught the other fella. I don't know whether there was no. Did they ever catch the stabber?
No.
So, but if they've caught him, he's killed someone. He's then doing 15, 20 years in prison. His life's fucked. Like there's no winner. There is no winner.
There's never a winner.
He's even now the geezer who's done it. I guarantee you, his head's a mess. I bet he don't sleep well.
To be fair, the people that they've probably done about another 15 since
Really?
then. Do you know what I mean? Like it was or they've pissed off back to Kingston or something. Do you know, who knows? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was the norm. And then once that had happened, and obviously he'd passed away, and he didn't have any parents at that time because his parents was addicts, and he lived with his nan and stuff. His nan's probably passed away by now. This was years ago, so there's no one really
Awful.
around to do the remembering of it. And there's me. I don't even know if any of my pals would even be thinking twice. Like quite a few of my mates are even dead anyway. So, and a lot are in jail. So it's and a lot of people still do the same shit. And you're like, what, grown men? Like you're halfway to 100 near enough. Do you know what I mean? And you're literally doing the same shit. Drop it out, bro. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, not learn at all. But then after that had happened, that sent me a little bit loopy. And then I went on a bit of a warpath from them. And I was having little fights here and there with different people and, starting that territory stuff. Like, what are you fucking doing on my side of the estate? You shouldn't even be over it. And then, jumping people and just causing chaos, mate. And it happened on this one occasion, and I saw this boy with his mate. And again, another thing I say to kids is be careful who you're out and who you're with, because if shit hits the fan, you'll know who your friends are if they stick around with you. Do you know what I mean? And in this situation, his mate didn't stick around and he ran off. So it left him to get a bit beaten, as to say. And I thought that was it from there. That was it. He just had a couple of slaps and punches or whatever, and that was that. And 2 weeks later, I got my comeuppance for that, what I'd done to him. The difference for that was I didn't get just punched and kicked. I got stabbed as well. So it was...
Where was you stabbed? Whereabouts?
In my thigh with a carving knife. But the worst thing about it is I didn't even know I'd been stabbed at first. I thought I'd been kneed in the leg. When back in the day as kids, you get dead-legged.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know, because I was getting banged in the face that many times, and there was like 5 kids and I was getting jumped. So I was more interested in trying to protect myself. I was literally getting battered. And then obviously I had something from one side of me, and it was like a real intense dead leg. It felt intense. And there was a lady in the flat, and she'd shouted, "Aye!" I remember shouting it, like, "Aye!" And they've looked up. It stopped. Everything just stopped, and then they ran. And at the time that they ran, all of a sudden, my feet and the side of my arm started feeling funny. So instantly, you're looking, and I looked. That's when I saw it. It was sticking out the leg, and the minute I saw it sticking out the leg, I felt the pain.
Knife still in it?
Yeah. Luckily,
Yeah.
my intentions was to pull it out, but I fainted. Yeah.
Best
The
thing,
surgeon
yeah.
said I was very, very lucky I survived, because my hand was on it when the ambulance arrived. So I obviously was going to be pulling it out, and I was millimetres from my main artery. So I would have bled out. And back then, I would have bled out and died. So, and the lady was the one that...
Saved your life, ultimately.
Yeah. But because I did get battered. My face was fucked.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Was that the first time you took a sort of beating, properly, or was that like...
Not really. No, I got jumped again before that. I had this, and you know who you are and all, you mug. And I had this friend. He was a good friend of mine. But there was a thing going on with somebody that I knew, and this boy's girlfriend. And I disagreed for his bang out of order. It's not what your friends are supposed to be doing with each other. Do you know what I mean? And I piped up about it. Them two ended up having a one-on-one on some grass. And they literally tried to jump him, and I kind of leave it out. It's not happening. That's bang out of order. At the end of the day, you're the one that's been seen with his missus. It's just bang out. You've had the scrap. Just leave it at that. And then from then, we kind of like slowly started to separate, and we said 4 or 5 of them we weren't really chatting to, and the behaviours was a little bit different, and they was acting booky, and booky means like they was just being dodgy, very suspicious. Do you know what I
can
mean?
feel when it's off, can't you?
Definitely, I knew something was right. So I was with my mate Anthony. My mate Anthony would be able to confirm this, and we was on the way to his brother's house, the same house that I used to learn to drive the car on the drive. And he lived on this road called Baseford Road. And there used to be like a 6-a-side football club at the bottom of Bar Lane, which my school used to be up there. And they used like this 6-a-side football place, indoor. So as we've come walking around the corner, they've come out of this football club. And I ignored him. I didn't have nothing to say to him. I was with my mate Anthony. We was on my way to his brother's. So as I've come walking around the corner, and as I've got to the top of the corner, there's like a pub that used to be on the corner. I don't know if it's there anymore, but there used to be a pub on the corner. Anyway, they was following from behind, and then they shouted my name, and I've like turned round, and one of them said, "I'm your worst nightmare, bitch." And I was thinking, what? Like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? So I didn't think anything of it. So I turned back round and went to walk off, and then one of them ran up towards me, grabbed my arm and pulled my arm back, and then punched me in the side of the face. With a punch in the face, I felt it made my head rattle. So I'd spun around in a way, and I thought in my head, "Oh, fuck that, I ain't sticking around for this." So I've tried to run off, and I'll admit I tried to run off. Do you know what I mean? I could have a fight, but I ain't getting stuck in that. Do you know what I mean? So I've like tried to run off. Unfortunately, because he punched me so hard, I was stumbled.
All over the place.
Yeah, I didn't know what had happened. So I was stumbled. So he managed to grab hold of me quite quickly. As he'd grabbed hold of me, I got jumped, literally, by all of them. I got battered. My parents, they took me to hospital. I was that bad. One thing that they didn't do was drop me to the floor, which I'd always hold on that, like, because they kept telling me to go, like, get on the floor. They was already stamping me and smashing me with bats as it were. Like, all my head was bleeding, my face, my eyes was out here. I was in a bad way. I managed to, like, so again, another woman shouted out a window. Another woman, how about that? So she shouted out the window. My pal ran off and left me, Anthony, and he ran off and left me. He said he went to go and get his brother. Yeah, do you know what I mean? But by the time I've been smashed in for about 5 minutes and managed to get to his house, his brother was only just putting his shoes on. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've literally left me to get fucking battered. So I've managed to stumble my way to his house. And the minute that I walked through the door, I just collapsed. I got hammered, mate. Like, that was the worst beating I've ever had. And my mum arrived in the car. She's gone nuts when she saw the state of me. My nose was over here. My eyes was out here. Like, I was in a bad way. So they'd sent me to the hospital, and I had a broken nose, fractured jaw. My eyes was literally nearly enough popped. Like, I was in
bad way.
I was bad, yeah. They battered me. So that was probably the only worst beating that I've had, other than like the stabbing and the beating that I had with that.
Yeah. I remember getting beaten with a bat when I was about 14. Mistaken identity.
Oh, no.
And I remember getting kicked from behind, and then I literally gone straight down because they kicked me, and they was trying to go for me nuts. They were swinging this bat at me nuts, and they got me right on the underside of the thigh, and I thought I'd been stabbed. It just exploded.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my thigh just went pop, blood everywhere.
Oh, so it popped your skin?
Yeah.
Did it really?
Yeah, and I was literally...
Jesus.
I was black and blue, like kicking the
They
side
must have
of
whacked
me.
you with some right force.
Yeah. I say, Christ, I've got 4 kids. I don't think if they'd got me nuts, I swear to you now, them
You
kids
wouldn't have
wouldn't
had
be
no
here.
kids,
Yeah. Could have saved a fortune.
Yeah. Damn you with the bats.
Yeah,
But,
awful, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, crazy times, mate. But I think at that point then, you know, I was gone with the wind then. Right. And, you know, when the stabbing had happened again, that was a shield of honour. I survived it. I got stabbed with a screwdriver not long after that in my stomach. And then got done just underneath my ball bag with a penknife. Just in a normal tear up that were, and they did underneath. That one hurt. But I don't know. God must want me here for something, because I was
going to say, because it sounds like it's all leading up for a big one where you don't come out of it.
Exactly.
Like,
and I did.
How did you change? What happens? How have you managed to get out of this lifestyle?
Well, it's been some graft, like a lot of graft, and I mean getting like that. We've got to imagine now. I'm 42 now. That was still only up to about the age of 16 and a half. So I've still got all that other time, like, you know, with the drug dealing. You know, got the first prison sentences started to come into it. Going to jail for the first time. You know, ending up in Glenparva in Leicester. And, you know, being in lifer prisons for being caught selling drugs in open jails. Like, you know, so there was so many different aspects to me. I don't know, the cycle of my life, really, through decision making, but not so much through decision making, but also the crowd of people,
products
that
of
I chose
environment
to be around. Yeah, and because I didn't really know any better, obviously I knew what right and wrong is. I'm not stupid, and I decided to make them choices, and I knew what the consequences were, but I still went ahead and did it. But because I was always homeless, I never ever had anywhere to call home. Me going to jail was no drama for me.
Don't make a difference.
Didn't make a difference at all. It was a piece of piss anyway.
Yeah.
I never had any dramas in jail.
And you got nothing to lose.
I didn't, no.
You got nothing to
I didn't
lose.
even have a family, so it didn't really matter to me. And obviously I didn't have kids then, so it was no drama. Oh yeah, you've got 6 months in jail. Sweet. When's the bus? Like, what time is it? Oh,
What time's dinner?
We're having dinner at 5.
Yeah.
Get me there quickly, because I know it's rhubarb and custard today.
Yeah.
Like,
People got brownie tonight.
yeah, and
sweet.
that's how it worked for me. And it was, you know, and in Wire Wise was ruthless. Like back in the day, like you're in Glenparva and like Unit 12, and if anyone's been there, they'll know about Unit 12. It was Beirut. Like, it was ruthless in there. Everyone had something to prove. And you've got people
Is
on
that youth? Is that a youth?
young offenders institution.
Yeah. And that's what everyone says. They are the worst. Like, get to a man's, like, an adult prison,
Yeah.
and people want to do their time. But everyone
I've
says
got a
it.
scar on my eyebrow from where I got whacked with a tray, and I'd only been in there a day. But the thing was, when I'd gone in and my pad mate, and it, like without being judgmental on how people look, you can usually tell that jail ain't for you. Do you know what I mean? And you know that when you walk in and you look and you think, oh, I've literally got someone that's not going to be able to look after himself in your cell with you. Do you know what I mean? And I just knew straight away. The geezer was from Bedford or something. And so anyway, I've gone in, and back then we didn't have TVs then. They were just starting to put the aerials into the walls. And so it was like, basically the time that you've got in jail, you're going to have to make up the time for yourself, whether that would be wrestling with your pad mate, getting the mattresses on the floor or whatever. Just do whatever you do to pass the time. A lot of people used to tend to sleep or just stand there screaming out the windows or at the doors for their own fun. That's where bullying comes into it. So they'd be shouting up different cells and getting them to do this, or getting them to shout or rap that, or sing me a song. There was a lot of people that used to sing Barbie Girl out the door. Like, yeah, they used to terrorise them. But my pad mate, they was shouting up like pad 14. And my pad mate's face all of a sudden changed. And I'm like, what's the matter with you? And he was like, oh, they just keep getting me to shout out the door. And I said, what, is that our cell they're shouting? And he was like, yeah. And I said, yeah, you can't do that anymore. And he was like, yeah, but they're making me do it. I'm like, you can't do that anymore. Seriously, you can't. He goes to the door and tells them that I've told him that he can't do it anymore. So now he's involved me in the drama. So they've shouted me up, yo, pad 14's bad, mate. I thought, for fuck's sake. Here we go. I don't even know who they are. Everyone was banged up. So when I've come onto the wing, I haven't even seen anyone's faces, so I ain't got a clue who anyone is. And then they started shouting me up, and I said, look, it's not my first rodeo. I ain't doing it. No, I'm not shouting out or big on up Birmingham or whatever the bloody hell you want me to do. It's not happening. Do you know what I mean? There's like, what in the morning? So all throughout the night, then you're thinking, fucking hell, your heart's going, your belly's rumbling, you can't sleep. You're thinking, what the fuck's coming tomorrow?
Yeah.
Who are these people? He's obviously shit scared, so they're obviously saying about him. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, breakfast come, nothing happened. Lunchtime come, nothing happened. Tea time come, boom! Like, straight in my face with the metal trays. Now, anyone that's been to the jails and they had them trays, you've got like a big metal tray with a big bit there and two little circles there. One of them round your mush.
You know about
it rattles you, yeah. And my eyebrow split, and we had a bit of a fight up on the freeze. And in Glenparva on the freeze, they used to have bully pads, and they have like little cages at each end with like bully pads on each side. So all of the bullies, they couldn't engage with anybody else on the landings. They'd be stuck behind there. They get let out separately. So we had to tear up in there, and we was like banging back and forth off the bully cages, and then the screws come up to eat you up, squeeze your thumb up there, which fucking hurts, and take you down the block. And then after that had happened, I'd come back onto the wing, because this kid had a bit of a reputation in Birmingham. I had a bit of a reputation when I come back, because no one had stood up to this kid. I even had him spud fist me big respect, like, because I basically stood up and I was having a scrap, and then from then on, for me being on that wing, it was a breeze.
Yeah.
So everything was cool. But I didn't intentionally go out to do that. I was quite happy just to go into my cell and just do my time.
But you don't want to see this fella being bullied.
No, that was
Yeah.
bang out of order, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm in that cell with him as well. So that involves me now, because then they're going to assume that I'm the same as that.
Was the other fella, was he okay from then on
He was
inwards as
all right.
well, yeah?
Yeah, he was all right from there, yeah. So he was my pad mate from then on. Again, what you do when you go in jail, you stick together with your pad mate. That's what you're supposed to do. There's been a couple of times I've put someone's mattress outside the cell and not let them back in.
How many times you been in?
I've done 8.5 years of my life in jail. Yeah, my last time.
Big chunk.
What?
Big chunk.
It is a big chunk of your life, yeah. But again, I was on drugs or I was homeless. I was on drugs or I was homeless.
What was your longest sentence?
4.
Served 2.
2 year 3. I got extra days for a fight. So that was the longest. That was for aggravated burglary. And I say that, but it was a drug dealer. Ironically, he phoned the police. Mad, that, innit? You know, I've never got over that.
No.
I always still talk about it to this day. Like, what? Like, that's so ironic.
Did you see that one the other day where the was going around with a guy in the taxi, and he got out of the
Yes.
taxi?
Uncle Drive.
Uncle, I've got money, Uncle.
Uncle
And at
Drive.
first- and he's
Uncle
like-
weren't interested until he saw the Queen's Head, mate. Like,
He still didn't go over 30.
but everyone's talking about that, right?
The first thing he done was on the phone to old Bill.
The feds. But the thing is, and I don't hold that against him at all, yeah? Because I have these conversations with people. Now, you've got to look at it as, are you a civilian or are you involved in the game? Which one are you? Now, if you're a civilian, no one can call a civilian a snitch for phoning the police. Yeah? You can't. Because they're a civilian. They're not involved in criminality. They're more than they've more got the right to be phoning the police. Of course they have. Your house has been burgled. Phone the police. Do you know what I mean? Your kid's just been weighed in at school. Phone the police. Do you know what I mean? Do the right thing. But if you're involved in that game, you've got to be that it's expected that something could possibly happen.
Live by
at
the
some
sword,
point
die
in
by the
time.
sword, yeah.
I'd say that, but then on the other side of it, unless I think personally he panicked, and if you look at the whole situation of what actually happened in that taxi, he's fucking lucky he survived that.
Massively, yeah.
Someone is looking.
Was that a
over.
machete that come through the window?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he had his own little poke as well. It weren't anything major that he had. He just had a little poker on him. But I think if you whoever they were, I would have sacked them, to be honest, because whatever job that they were set out to go and do, they didn't fucking do it, and
Yeah.
they didn't do it properly. So unless they didn't intend on doing the harm set out that the video made it look like it was supposed to end up, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he did do well with backing himself up. He took on like 4 or 5 geezers that was going through windows at him, and he held himself well, which he's now. This is why I don't feel sorry for him, because he's gone onto social media and he's tried to big himself up for this and that, and still showing off his watch and his jewelry and whatever else. And unfortunately, that's probably going to happen to you again.
Has he? Because I don't know. I've not seen anything on him. Was it? What have you actually seen him? Because I'll gather that was the dash cam from the.
That's the dash cam, but he's also got social media as well.
And he's still sort of giving it online.
Yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah.
Is he really?
Yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah.
That's mental.
They got back and they said he should have called an ambulance instead of the police. Because if you call the police, they're just going to question you.
Of course.
Whereas if you call the ambulance, the police are going to turn up.
Which you're going to be like, no comment.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if he called the ambulance, it's not snitching. But because he's called the police straight away,
It's snitching.
snitching.
Yeah. But the thing is, in his defence and Uncle's offence, yeah, all right, Uncle, in your defence, right, they were still chasing down the car.
Yeah.
All right. So he knew at that point, and the back of that car, I can guarantee you now, when he got out of that car and that whole situation was done, he'd be like, fucking hell, that was a close call. He'd say that to himself sat in the fucking toilet. He'd be saying, fuck me, that was close. Do you know what I mean? But then after that had done, no, I've done it. Like, you think, fucking hell, that was close. And then you crack on and carry on doing what you're doing because that's all you know.
There's people in this country. They don't know you. They don't care. They don't care. You know.
I used to say to a lot of people, like, if I let me pick you up in a crane. I'll pick you up in a crane and I'll go and drop you in the middle of my estate and see how long you last.
Yeah.
You wouldn't last long. You'd probably be walking out naked, to be honest with you. You get everything taken off of you with a kicking at the same time. Stop behaving like the way that you're behaving, seriously, because you don't know. You just don't know, like, really. And I think There has to be ways that you have to be careful with how you have these conversations, because sometimes in conversations it can come across as quite glamorizing. That's the glamorizing of that lifestyle. Oh yeah, it's fun, and yeah, it's this, and yeah, you've done this, and yeah, you've done that. But every single one of them decisions was the wrong decision.
Again, this is the big problem though. When you talk about it being glamorized, it is glamorized. There's something about this whole gangster life that people are intrigued by. You look at podcasts, it's crime and gangster podcasts.
Don't even get me started.
They're the number one podcasts. You know, that's what everyone loves. Like, it's mental.
But why?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's like that's what people go to.
Do you know a good gangster that don't talk?
No one does.
But no gangster talks.
No, that's what I'm saying.
The
No
whole
one.
point of
no
being
one
a
does.
gangster, no
Yeah.
one knows your business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you've got so many people that go out there and publicly speak about this shit, what are you doing?
When people go on about, like every gangster who you know them because they've been fucked. You know, the Craze, they didn't.
Well, they got greedy, didn't they?
But I mean, how old were the Craze when they got banged up? You know, they didn't have a long
Were they
life.
in their 20s or something, weren't they?
They were young. You know, they didn't have a long life. It's like, you know, most of these people who have given up chunks and chunks of their life, people don't see it. They're not looking at the consequences, which again is importance, especially of what you do, going around talking to people, and you know, even being on the podcast, actually trying to sort of shake people and say it's not as glamorous as you think it is.
It's not, and I think, you know, the issues that I've had from that life is enemies. For one, you're going to have enemies. I've lost a lot of stuff through that lifestyle.
Stuff as in
Anything I touch, I can never hold anything. I could never hold anything down. Could never have a property. Could never have a job. You know, because if you put yourself, once you're involved in that game and you're making money, no job that you're ever going to have is going to make that. So you get stuck in that cycle of surviving, really. Excuse me. But you'll have your 9-to-5 job that makes you, say, 1,400 quid a month, yeah? You say £1,400 a month. But yet, when you're involved in that game, you can do that in 6 hours.
Yeah.
So
you lose touch, you lose value of money.
But what comes with that is some big risks. So that's the bit that people forget about. Yeah, it's okay that you can raise that amount of money, but there's so many risks that come with that. Now, you're going to leave your house every single day. As soon as you hear a car door, you're instantly looking around at your back. Instantly. You hear a little moped or a motorbike behind you, you're looking around. There's a knock at your door. Bum, 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 bum. Who's that? Your curtain twitching. Like, what kind of a life is that? There's so many consequences to that life. And
also, over 20 years, that £1,400 a month that will go up and up and up.
Yeah.
And if you've spent, you know, if you took a 20-year chunk of your life, 8 of it, you've earned nothing.
No.
And when you start looking like that, you know, it's so important for people, young, impressionable people, to realise that your life, you know, prison's not fun.
It ain't fun. It's not fun. But like I try and make it sound as less glamorous as I can. Although the fact of prison is not hard. It's not hard. What is hard is being in there and having to sit with your own feelings and your own thoughts. Yeah. And you're sharing a cell with somebody you've never met in your life. Now, could you imagine being out here and just randomly sharing a room with someone? So like let's say I've never met you, and then I just come to your office. Oh, this is a nice office.
And I start rocking 2 years' time.
Yeah, we leave in 2 years' time, and I've just rocked up a camp bed in your office.
Yeah.
I'll see you in the morning then, mate.
Yeah.
I'm taking a shit next to you. Do you know what I mean? Farting through the night. Pad mates stink, feet stink. They're slavering off the top bunk. Like, these are people that you'd probably never even imagine you'd ever speak to in your life. But you've got no choice now. You're locked in a cell. There's nothing you can do about it. And then you can't get out of that cell until a screw comes and opens that door. So you're not in control of your own life anymore. They are. The system's in control of your life. And people will go into prison and they'll fight against the system, but they never win. You'll never win against the system. And the reason why you'll never win is because you're still locked up. You're not going anywhere. So what's the point? It doesn't make any sense. So you're not going to see your family if you've got any family. You can't make a phone call when you want to make a phone call unless you've got a mobile phone in there, which not everybody can have. You know, some people's lucky enough to have a mobile phone. I was lucky to have a mobile phone, but not everybody's lucky enough to have a mobile phone. Therefore, then you've got to hope that you've got enough credits on your canteen for you to be able to use their phone. But you're phoning a mobile phone with, let's say you've got 5 credits on that PIN phone. If someone's phone goes to answer machine, it swipes a credit straight off you straight away. Now you've only got 4 left. So it doesn't go very far at all. And then you've got to wait all the way until next week to get another load of PIN credit. And that's if you've got any money on your private cash. Because if you've got no money on your private cash, you're literally surviving on what the prison give you, which is nothing. So people don't think that. Like, they think it's all all glamorous that I'm going to sell a lot of drugs in prison and I'm going to get a mobile phone and I'm going to like serve up the whole landings. No, you're not. Seriously, bro, you're not. And I know you're not. You know, don't think that. Don't have that mindset of that. Like, is that worth you risking going out for one little bit of beef because that person told your mate to fuck off for you to now go and chase him down in the street and stab him in the chest? Really? And what, you're willing to do 25 years for that and just live that life in prison that I've just told you about for the next 25 years? Nah, mate.
Yeah, lose the ego.
Yeah, you don't need to have that ego. Like that ego, put that into something positive. Not like stabbing someone in the chest. It don't make no sense. And the value of their own life, not even about anyone else's life. It's about you're obviously not valuing your own life, really, because once you've made that decision, you can't go back. There's no going back from that. And if that person's lucky enough to survive, whatever you've set out to do, they've still survived, but yet you're still going to do the bird for it. And it's going to be a very long time. There's no need to do that. By the time you get out of prison, everybody's changed their ways. Some of them might have. Some of them might have settled down with a missus and had a kid and got an house and completely moved on. Or that pal that you've actually gone and done that crime for has moved to a different area because he's sick of the lifestyle now. He has got a kid. The kid's in school. He's now got himself a job in bloody Morrison's. And you're doing a 20-year stretch for someone that's not even interested in you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I didn't see that at that point of my life. I was still too wrapped up with it. And when I finally made that, I kind of like tried to look into some form of rehabilitation for my drug use and stuff. And I ended up moving down south away from.
How did you get on? Obviously, you know, you said earlier you sort of smoking weed or whatever. How did that get onto the heavier stuff? Just again, product of environment.
Yeah, well, I was selling it at the time. Didn't know what it were. I just knew the name. Didn't even know what it did to you, to be honest. And I moved into this hostel. And in this hostel, it was mixed with adults inside this hostel. And there was a load of trampy men, as to say, goofing out on sofas and that. And I asked this geezer, his name's Dean, and I asked him, I was like, what are they doing? Like, why don't they get a job or something? And he was like, oh yeah, they're on smack. And I was like, what's that? He was like, what, you've never heard of like heroin? I was like, yeah, all right, that's what, I've got this in my pocket. He said, what, have you never tried that? I said, no, why, what is it? He said, yeah. So I went upstairs and gone into my room. He said, yeah, I'll sprinkle some in like a roll up, because I used to smoke back then. I don't smoke anymore apart from vapes, but like put it into a roll up, had a smoke of it, fucking smashed me off my face. I literally was gone with the wind, mate. Like I'd had about 70 bloody sleeping pills.
Yeah.
But it made me really violently sick. But you'd think that would be enough to put you off for carrying on taking it. But even though I was violently sick, it was a nice feeling. It was weird. And then for a couple of days, it was in my system for a good couple of days of me starting to come out of it and like feeling this weird sensation of a feeling that it made me feel. But I had no feelings anymore. So anything that, like any worries or any kind of upset, like depression or whatever, I didn't feel that anymore. It was like that it took it completely away. So then it became a cycle for me. So I was then using it more. And then it became into an everyday occurrence. And then I started using it every day. I didn't know that you could be ill off of it. I didn't have a clue about that until it became when I didn't use one day and I've come down like I'd had the flu or something.
Yeah.
And I was well ill. And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, oh yeah, you're rattling. I was like, what the hell is that? Because all these words are new to me. And he was like, it's called cold turkey. It means that like you're withdrawing from heroin. I was like, what? that's how it makes you feel. It's like, shit, I don't want to feel like that. And it got worse.
So it begins.
Yeah, and then it began, and then before long, 2 years had gone by, because time flies when you're having fun, as you say. Do you know what I mean? And like 2 years had gone by. I'd been to jail a couple of times for little minor sentences, this while driving or whatever, and a couple of little shop runs out of sport shops, like grabbing like big weights of clothes and stuff, turning all the coat hangers the right way, and then you can just pick them all up and then just dash out and jump into a car, and then and then the years had gone by, and I just so heavy on drugs. Every time I went to jail, I never used.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, how do you feel when you go in? Because you must have some major withdrawals.
They used to give you tablets. So the medical team would give you tablets. It used to be like these DF118s.
Is that like methadone?
Nah, because methadone wasn't. It probably were around at that point, but I didn't know about that stuff because I weren't really highly involved in drug and alcohol services. I was still young. So I didn't really look at that. But when you go into prison, they ask you the questions about addictions and mental health. Are you feeling suicidal? And they ask you all that stuff. And I said, yeah, I'm on heroin. When was the last time you had some? Well, I've been in the police station for 3 days because I had a warrant out for my arrest. So I've not had any since Friday. I'm really, really ill. Okay, we'll sort it out and we'll get you some meds. And then they put you on a detox landing. And then they give you like 5 days or 5 to 10 days worth of like dihydrocodeine.
Just to wean you off.
They'd wean you off it. And then within 10 days, you're on nothing. And then you're basically coming back to your senses and making yourself feel better within the first 3 to 4 weeks of being in. Hard. Like, it's not easy because you're doing it with other people that are also doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Come out and you use straight away?
Not straight away, no. I'd make my main plans for when I used to get out, which is pretty similar to probably some people, really. I'd be like, oh, the first place I'm going to go is McDonald's and get a Big Mac burger. Do you know what I mean? They're not like I'm going to sort myself out and get a job. It's a Big Mac meal. But and then I'd be all right for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then you just get back involved with the same crowd again. It's very easy.
Yeah.
And because when you go into prison with an addiction, you don't do a lot of work around addiction whilst you're in there. You might do the odd carrot course here and there, which is what they call it, where you do a bit of like relapse prevention and stuff like that. But it's not like you just do that to get out of your cell, to be honest, because otherwise you're locked up for 23 hours a day. So you just do it to get out your cell, and you just go and have a conversation with a few other buds there. Oh, you passed your course, there's your little certificate. And then you go out and end up using. But realistically, a relapse prevention course ain't really covering the shit that you're using for. Like, I'm using because I've been abused, I've been stabbed, I've seen this, I've seen that. Like, they're half the things that I've been using the drugs for. They can't look at that in jail. So it was pointless.
How was your mental health in jail?
It wasn't too bad. The worst thing for me, because drugs block your thoughts and feelings and emotions whilst you're on them. When you come off them, they all start coming back. So anxiety, for example, I never suffer with anxiety, like, at all. But you start getting anxious and feeling anxiety. My PTSD, so for the flashbacks for things that have happened would come back. I'd have night terrors in jail, but it was something that I could cope with because I knew that the situation I was in, I weren't in control of it. So don't worry about the stuff that's out of your control. It don't make no sense. So I had that in my mind quite quickly. So I'm getting mixed with, like, I'd just get back involved with the same crowd again. And it'd be like, 4 weeks, and then I'd start using again. And then it'd be like a revolving door. So I'd probably be back in jail again within 6 months. Minor offences. Because when you're addicted to drugs, you start doing like shop thefts and just robbing shops.
Nothing matters. I suppose you got to get your fix.
Yeah, definitely. Anything that's going to raise you a score, 30, 40 quid, you know what I mean? Like, you just go and do it. If it's blocks of cheese, steaks, or whatever it is, you'll go and steal it. You're tea leaf. Anything that moves, you'll steal it.
Yeah.
So that's how it kind of become that. And it just got to that point that we started doing little raids on newsagents. And back in them days, you used to have the cigarettes still, and the shutters weren't down or anything like that, and the alcohol and stuff like that. And you could sell all that stuff. You get all their cigarettes out of it and all their alcohol. You
sell it the same day,
yeah, you get rid of that instantly. So we started doing stuff like that, and we got chased by the police, and we got greedy again. We went and did the same shop twice, and at this point where we pulled up on the side of the road, this police car had gone by. None of us had licenses, do you know what I mean? And we pulled up, the police car had looked, and I said to my pal, I was like, the feds are there. And he was like, what? And without saying anything else, he put his foot down in the car. And he put his foot down and he was gone. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, we got to go. And I had a warrant out for my arrest anyway for a previous. And we kind of got away from them in the end. Like we did get away, but he ended up crashing the car. He went round the corner far too quick and it just went straight into the back of another car. So as we've both jumped out and gone the opposite way. By that time, the police cars come and managed to catch up with us, and I've ran down the hill. Police nowhere to be seen at this point, but I saw a police car at the bottom of the road, and I thought that police car was for me. And there was a bloke walking up with a dog. So I've then stopped, put my arms out, like, oh, okay. And it was just a member of the public with a dog, and the police car was someone because the police was in someone's house. So I could have got away. Do you know what I mean? In a way, I'm kind of glad that I got caught because I wouldn't have been here today. Do you know what I mean? Because things happen for a reason. But I've stopped, and then the cop will come running up behind me and obviously got me. And I ended up getting remanded into jail, and I was on remand for quite a long time at that point. I was on like third strike stuff and all that strikey stuff coming back in them days. But when that point it came, I had my drugs worker and I had my solicitor and people that was outside trying to back me up with different bits, and they managed to find me a rehab, and that was moved me down south, and they put me down south into Bexhill-on-Sea down south. Went into rehab for a placement for about 9 months. Struggled with that for a long time. It was really difficult. I had a lot of anger that I didn't even know I had, to be honest.
Yeah.
Until I started having therapy in there, and I had to have, I won't say it because obviously your page, but I had R chaperone counselling for what had happened to me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So the big R.
Yeah.
And I had that. And that was the first time that I kind of gone in depth about stuff that had happened to me, really. So when I was around different people, I had an issue with men at that point. It made me very, very nervous around men.
Trust issues again.
Yeah, big time, yeah.
Yeah.
And they have a thing of they used to hug each other. It freaked me out. I'm like, mate, don't touch me. And they'd be like, oh, morning. Like, I couldn't do that. Like, I don't want no man touching me at all. So it brought up some major issues for me, that I didn't know was there because it had been blocked out by the drugs. So the minute that I weren't on them, all these issues started to come back.
How old are you now?
24.
24.
Yeah, 24. And I had a bit of a jailhead on me, but also I wanted to sort myself out, or try. It didn't. It worked for a bit. I got out of rehab. I lasted for about 1.5 years. Ended up lapsing because of an ex-resident that I was sharing a B&B with at the time. Walked in on him using. I crumbled straight away.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, I can't believe it. And I crumbled straight away.
After 1.5 years.
1.5 years, yeah. Did well. I'd work.
Madness.
Looking fresh.
Yeah.
Was at the gym. Tanned up. Do you know what I mean? I was working in a Yates's bar at the time as well. Doing a bit of glass collecting and working behind the bar. I was doing all right for myself. Until I walked in the room that day and he was doing it. Crumbled straight away.
Madness.
Yeah.
Madness.
The smell got me. And I was just like, fuck. So then the cycle started slowly. And then I had a 9-month outburst. I think I relapsed for about 9 months. And then got back off of it. Tried to sort myself out by getting a job. But at this point, the police in my town knew about my history. Because I have got a colourful background. My criminal record proves it. Gang affiliations and just loads of different things. And they obviously, when they nicked me, I got nicked. I had a scrap. I got done for a battery ×2. Now, in my defence, I was just sticking up for myself. I weren't even out on a night out. I was just minding my own business. I went to a kebab shop with a couple of pals of mine. My old mate Leif, he would tell you the story, exactly what was happening because he was there. And they barged me from both sides of my shoulder. They was walking past me. One of them barged this side and this side. And I fell on my arse with my kebab in my hand. And, my mentality is like that.
See red, bosh.
And I'd stood up and I was like, what the fuck? I tried it with words, passing on words at first, and they come to me. They was like, what the fuck are you going to do about it? Fists clenched. But the minute that they got to a certain distance of me, I lashed straight out. Bang! Whacked him. He dropped. And then the other one come towards me, so I gave him an ear punch, and they hurt, like the ear punches with bare fists. Bang! His ears ringing. And my pal Leif and this other kiddie, he was doing nursing at the time as well. Can't remember his name. I think his name's Aaron. And he was like, oh my God, I can't fucking believe what you've just done. I'm like, and I was like, mate, just shut up. Let's just get back to the house. So I ran back to Leif's flat, and within 15 minutes, on the door, and it was police. So they followed us through cameras.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
we'd gone, and they knew who my pal were, and they like literally pushed me down on the floor, handcuffed me in my pal's bathroom on the floor, and yeah, they nicked me. But in my defence in the interview was like, they started it, they was coming towards me, I protected myself, and they saw it from camera evidence that was the case. So the only thing that they could do was give me a caution for ×2 battery.
Yeah.
And that was a touch. That was lucky, but that weren't lucky because then they started to know who I were, because I hadn't been known to them.
Was you tattooed by now?
Nah.
How old was you when you got your tats?
So these are fresh. I've only had these for about a year.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So at that point, I didn't really have tattoos apart from my old bulldog and all that from back in the day. And, you know, I didn't have no neck tattoos. I had no sleeves or nothing like that. So I was just little old Carl. But they obviously saw all my history at that point, and they thought, fuck me, why didn't we know he was there sooner?
See you soon. One of them, yeah.
Yeah. They was up my arse then all the time. And I passed my driving test. First time ever. I've been banned since I was 17 years old, and I managed to pass my test. I got pulled all the time, telling me I had no insurance when I did. And yeah, and they was just literally on my case. Got myself a job. My granddad was dying of Alzheimer's. So I was going back and down to Nottingham with my mum. My auntie was married to a Turkish fella. So she was going over to Turkey and that to buy apartments and stuff like that over there. And I'd go and help my mum look after my granddad. And when he passed away, I thought, you know what, I could do this care stuff. But because of my criminal record, I don't know if I'll ever get a job in the industry. Do you know what I mean? Because it's all like DBS checks and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't been in trouble, I thought I'd give it a shot. I kept seeing this job advertised all the time. So I thought, yeah, I'll apply for it. So I did. And they said, we're open to giving people second chances and all that. And they employed me. But because I've been in and out of prison and I've been homeless, the DBS check took so long to come back. They just employed me without it being there, knowing that it was in the system and it was coming back. And I'd been honest. So this police officer obviously knew who I were. And, you know, he knew I was a bit of a shitbag. And he saw me in my uniform one day. And he was like, oh, how did you get a job doing that with your background? I said, well, you know, they're giving me a second chance, mate. Leopards never change their spots, mate. Well, this leopard has, you know, I'm doing well. I've been working for him for about 9 months at this point. So he took it upon himself to go in and question the care place about my criminal record and my application and stuff like that. He managed to help them race on my DBS. So within a week it had come back, and they sacked me the week after.
You're joking.
Yeah, sacked me the week after. So then at that point, I'm thinking, what the fuck am I doing work for then? I've been trying to change my life. Do you know what I mean? I might as well just get back involved in what I know best. So that's what I did. Managed to have an opportunity to start selling drugs again, and that's what I did. Started selling drugs. But I knew that the consequence to if I was to get caught, I'm going to go to jail. But at this point, I had kids. And I had no money to bring into the household at that point. I had a 2-month-old daughter. My boy was about 4 years old. Well, no, tell a lie, 3 years old. I had a finance car. This house was like 250 quid more than what it were originally. And like, how am I going to survive with that? I've just had someone, literally, I've just lost my job that was paying me a good amount. I was doing 76 hours a week on that job. I loved it.
Yeah.
Bloody good job, yeah. One of my best jobs. Looking at me, you wouldn't think that I'd be going in there wiping up people's asses. But, mate, I loved that job. It was brilliant.
Yeah. But there's a care inside you.
Yeah, I was a lovable rogue.
Yeah.
There was a woman called Gwen. She'd had a stroke, bless her heart, and her husband Peter. They've both passed away now. That's what I'm talking about. But they, you know, you'd usually have to finish her sentences for her and guess what she's trying to say, because she'd be like, and you're like, cup of tea. She'd be like, yes. So do you know what I mean? You had work with it. But I'd walk in the mornings, because I used to have to put this Accus cream on her feet. And I'd come in at 7:30 in the morning, and I'd be like, morning, Gwen. And I'd be rubbing my feet. She'd be like, oh, she'd be laughing her head off. And I'd be like, oh, you love that, didn't you? Like on the feet. Just playing, just a lovable rogue. Do you know what I mean? And I'd have Peter in the old shower. I'd bang his shower cap on, and I'd be squirting him in the face. And I'd just having a right giggle with him. And they loved it. They loved it. And most of the old people that I worked with did like it. You know, I had even one of the hardest knockers that I had, his name was Stephen Childs. He was the father of a magistrate. Bearing in mind, that's my old life, mate. Do you know what I mean? Magistrates, do you know what I mean? But he was an old school geezer, 100 years old. He was an hard nut to crack, but I cracked him. In the end, I had it to the point that he was waiting for me in the mornings to come in. He'd be like, "Morning, Cole. How are you doing?" I said, "You all right? You got your toast and all that?" "Oh, yeah, I'm ready. All I need is me back wash." I'm like, "Sweet, let's go and have it done." So I'd be doing all that. And unfortunately, he passed away, bless his heart. I found him in bed. And that was a freaky scenario. Being sat in a house with a dead person for 6 hours. Do you know what I mean? Like, but it was part of the job. Lovely fella. But he lived his life. Do you know what I mean? He was 100 years old. Good fella.
I think we'd all take that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it was, like I say, he was an hard nut to crack. And if you can crack any nuts, that was a nut that I cracked. And, you know, that was a big thing for me with him. Because
what a shame that that's ruined by the old Bill. That's a shame.
Ironically, I'm actually friends with the geezer.
Really?
Yeah. And it's just one of them things. Do you know what it is?
Do you speak to him about it?
Yeah,
No.
nah, don't need to. Do you know what he did? He apologised to me for being a knob. So moving on from that, and I'll shoot forward in the story. So I got approached by a lady that was running restorative justice in the local police station. And a lot of kids were starting to go missing from home, and they wasn't telling their parents where they was going, and they was getting involved in no good and gang behaviour and stuff. And they just weren't updating their parents. So they could be laying dead in a ditch somewhere, and their parents wouldn't even know about it. And that's concerning. So they got me in, and they looked through all my history. And before I actually did it, the lady was asking me on the phone, all like, you know, tell me a bit about you then. Like, you know, obviously we know you've been in gangs and you've done this and that. So I was reeling it all off. And by the end of the conversation, she was like, "You are the most honest criminal I've ever met in my life." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "Well, everything that you've just been talking about, I've actually had it up on the screen the whole time. I just wanted to see if you tell the truth."
Yeah.
And she was like, "You are someone that we're looking for. I need you to come and help me do it. If you're willing to do it, I'll get you clearance. I'll get you everything. Because obviously you've got that history. Police ain't going to let you in their domain unchecked. It's not going to happen." Do you know what I mean? So I passed like MPV checks so I could be in a police station unattended and all sorts. It was crazy. But I'm now in their domain. And it was one of the most awkwardest times of my life, because I'm now, they're usually coming into my domain where it's the cat and mouse scenario. It's not like that no more.
You're the wrong side of the perspex this time, yeah.
And they're all staring at you like you're going to rob their bloody bags in their
Yeah,
locker room.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not here for that. I'm trying to help you out. Do you know what I mean? So it took a while to be having that as feeling a natural feeling, as to say.
Yeah, for it to be normalised,
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Non-judgmental attitudes and all that.
The bad decisions with knives are the ones that are costing two families. You know, the ripple effect of that is a lot worse than someone who's stealing out of the local shop.
Now, I've been around, in the last couple of years, I've been around, I've changed my life around. Eight years ago, I decided to put a stop to all that lifestyle and try and make a difference. All my expertise that I have got now in that head of mine, and my physical, my physical abilities for the effort that I put into that life, I now put into trying to change other people.
What was the turning point?
I had a mental health breakdown in 2016. And I had my missus that I met when I got out of jail, because I got locked up. When I said I started serving up again, I got caught and knew the responsibility, and I got sent down into jail 2011. I got out in summer of 2013. And when I got out, I met my partner that I'm with now. Yes, we've had our issues in our relationship. We have, down to me, my decisions and stupid things that I've done to cause these problems, because she's perfect. Like, it's just,
Nice.
like I said to you, anything I touch, it turns to dust. I ruin everything. And I find it a struggle to be able to hold things down. And I'm not somebody well, I wasn't somebody that was in touch with my emotions. I was like that, quite cold. I'm used to things going wrong.
Stripped, yeah.
Yeah, things are like, everything in my life's usually negative anyway. Oh, well, fuck it, I'll just, you know what I mean?
It's happened again.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was so used to it. But this time around, she wasn't allowing that to happen. She was pulling me in, and she was trying to rein me in all the time with these decisions that I was making, and, you know, planning on bloody buying shooters and whatever else. Like, just, and she was like, "You can't do that, right?" Just reining me in. I was going back into like old behaviour.
Power of a good woman.
Yeah, man. But again, I was selling, and I had like loads of sniff in my house, and I'd have ounces at a time, and it was so easy to just go to the cupboard and rack up a line on the side whilst the EastEnders is on. Not even with a Budweiser, just rocking up a line for nothing. And then it had begun like I'd do that on a Friday, and my missus would wake up on a Sunday, and I'm sat there on the sofa with scabs on my nose, been up for 3 days. Morning, babe. Like, are you still up? Like, yeah, I ain't even slept yet. Do you know what I mean?
What day is it?
Thinking there's sniffer dogs outside my house, twitching at the curtains, like literally off my rocker. And I had a liver disease. I was dying. My liver was failing, and I had a consultant.
Was that due to coke or
just drug infused? It was
Yeah.
just really bad. Yeah, I was 7 stone in weight. I was being sick about 20 times a day. I was in a bad way. And luckily, this new treatment had come out. It was this chemo stuff, and I had to have an injection in my stomach every Tuesday. And I had to take these 3 big, massive pills every single day to hopefully get a cure for what was wrong with me. And there was at least an 8-week timeline on the medication to start to work. Luckily for me, when they was doing my counts and my blood counts, my disease was undetected within 6 weeks. So it worked. But before I got to that process, I had a mental health breakdown, and I tried to take my own life a couple of times. I was smashing diazepams like there was no tomorrow. And I had a massive outburst in my house, completely out of character for me. Never been like that with any woman, it's just not me.
what happened?
So when you're addicted to something so bad and you want it something so bad, and someone's trying to get in the way of it, you do whatever you got to do to try and get it. And my missus didn't want me taking these things. I was having psychosis moments where I was screaming and shouting out the window at people that weren't there. Didn't know what I was doing. I was off my trolley. And this one day, I'd had this outburst in my house. I'd flipped my table in my house, and there was a spag bowl went up all up the wall, and my missus had to do numerous phone calls to the police for her own safety. She felt unsafe. And she must have to be phoning the police.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't blame her for doing it. I was nuts. You know, it was the right thing to do. And when I had that outburst, you know, the police was called, I was removed. And at that point, we broke up for like 3 months. And at that point, I went on a downward spiral. And the words that she uses was leave it for me to get it out of my system. And I did. I had a massive use up for about 3 months, got it out of my system. One day I woke up and I decided that I can't do that anymore. And I said to her, if you take me back, I promise you from this day I'll stop using drugs. That's what I did. And we've been back together ever since.
Bang on. Yeah, bang on.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
8 years down the line, I'm clean.
Proud of you.
So
Yeah.
it was odd, but the difference is this time I looked at everything that was wrong with me.
But it's taken that long
It took me that long
to be able to see it.
But I was in the right frame of mind to do it. I was ready to do it, I think. And I did this course called Intuitive Thinking. And that course made me see a completely different concept of life that I'd never seen before. And understanding why we do the things we do and why your brain works the way that it does. It was more around the brain. And I didn't understand the way my brain worked because I just went along with it and just did whatever my brain told me to do. Do you know what I mean? Whatever I found pleasurable, I crack on and do it. Not even knowing that pleasure is going to cause me so many consequences.
Down the line, yeah.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I learned how to rechange my thought processes, that was a different thing for me. That was new. So I went with it. And what I found pleasurable, I integrated new pleasures and got rid of the old ones.
Replaced.
That's the word. Replaced. So I replaced old pleasures with new pleasures. And my new pleasure was life. I enjoyed life and I found it pleasurable. I found it pleasurable being around my children when I should have felt it pleasurable being around my kids anyway. I didn't. I had no, what's the word? Parental, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like responsibility.
Yeah,
like
I didn't feel it because I never had that myself, really. So I struggle to have an attachment to things because things always get taken away from me. So I say things get taken away from me, I always lose them because of my behaviour. So I try to tend to keep my my barriers up a lot and not get attached to things. And I did that sadly for my children. So for the first couple of years of their life, it weren't very good. So now I try and make sure that they have the best life that they can. And that's my 2 eldest as well. And I try my hardest. I'm not the best dad. I'm not going to say I'm the best dad, but I try You know, it's
Listen,
hard.
None of us have
not
got
easy,
it
mate.
perfected. Like we're kind of making it up as we go along, aren't we? We're,
Yeah,
most of us are actually winging it through life.
yeah, of course.
And as long as you do your best,
But that's how it worked. And then, she took me back and everything was, we had to rebuild from then. And I had to build up a lot of trust. And I had to prove to her, I always say actions speak louder than words. And I put in a lot of work. And, a lot of action came in with that. And the rest is history from that point of it. We don't really go over that unless we do podcasts and stuff, like we'll talk about it, which I'm quite open to talk about it. It's the truth. It's our life.
does it feel like a long time ago now?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people say, do you not worry that people would judge you for that behaviour? And I'm like, no, I don't give a shit because it's the story.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
I'm not without being horrible. You've been a product of environment for a long, long time. Like you've not had an easy start,
yeah.
and I think once that wheel's turning, it's very hard to jump out.
And also, I didn't want to jump out of it.
No,
Do you know what I mean?
but then you didn't know where you was jumping into.
No. You have to basically, when you walk away from, like, let's say gang lifestyle, and you walk away from drugs, and you walk away from this, you've basically got to reborn yourself to a brand new person because you will never remember the person you used to be.
It's scary as fuck. It's scary leaving a relationship.
Yeah.
People stay in relationships for far too long because they're frightened of that
Yeah.
jump. They're frightened of the unknown. They're frightened of new.
What's it going to be like on your own?
Yeah.
The worries. And that's, that was the cycle. And when that changed and drugs was my problem. Drugs was turning me into the person that I was. And the minute that you take the drugs away, the real me is there. That was just a sheet.
A mask.
Hiding,
Yeah.
And the real me is there. Like me sitting down talking to you today is me, Carl. That's
Yeah.
who I am without no drugs. Like, well, you put drugs in front of me, or not in front of me. I can leave drugs, but I mean, if I was sat on drugs now, I wouldn't be talking like this. My facial features would probably be different. My attitude would be different. I'd be a horrible person. I wouldn't be a likable guy that anyone wants to be around. Do you know what I mean? I'm disrespectful and rude. I don't give a shit about you. I'll probably look at your watch and think, fucking,
I'll have that.
but that's it is. Do you know what I mean? No respect for anybody.
Yeah.
So
Well, listen, when you get that heavy into drugs, you don't respect yourself, do you?
not at all. They used to have the saying, you'd sell your own nan if you could.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think, it's scummy behaviour. So all the effort went into sorting the life out and sorting out the relationships and being the best dad that I could for my kids. And, and I'm grateful and thankful that we've been able to be in the position we are today. And not many people can be in that position. Not many people are as strong to be in that position. And, the reason why we share the stories is because there will be people out there that are going through that right now.
They're at the halfway stage.
Yeah. There'll be people going through that right now. And if that story helps them to see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, fuck me, we'll share it.
Yeah.
Because you deserve it. It's a hard world to get out of, especially addiction.
And you're showing that they can jump out of that circle.
Can.
And it ain't that bad.
Stick together.
Yeah.
That's what we did. Hence the reason why we call twos a duo, because two heads are better than one and we're better off together. So that's why we come up with that brand as Two's a Duo.
Nice.
And now we find people actually in search for us on TikTok. It's a catchable name.
Yeah.
And they say, why Two's a Duo? And it's like, because we always end up back together and we're better off together. We set up our youth project together and we're in the position we are now through doing that together. And we've made it what it is. We've made the relationship what it is, and we've made the home life what it is. And we've done that together. That's the living proof that two heads are better than one. I wouldn't have been able to do it all on my own. So therefore, Two's a Duo was born. And from then on, we've done so many different things, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without the help and support of my partner. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Do you know
It's
what I mean?
powerful, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So for the whole point of from last year, so we've been grafting. Everything that people will see on social media isn't something that's just been handed on a plate. We've had to work really hard for what we've got, and it does work sometimes with it's not what you know, it's who you know. Of course, it's life. That's just how it works. But for 6 years, we've fought knife crime and worked a lot with young people. I've grafted my arse off to be in the position that I am. And then following on from all the contacts and the links that I've had from all them 6 years, I've brought it to the here and now for my own business. So yes, you'll see us on social media and we're doing silly videos, or you'll see us on a TV show. But that's only something that was filmed, let's say 12 months ago for 3 weeks in my house. There's still 12 months of hard graft that we do behind the scenes. There's nothing to do with that, which is going out, grafting and engaging with kids every single day with our youth project that we set up from scratch with no experience at all with even how to do a safeguard policy. So everything was done by ourselves, and we sat there on a sofa, designed the website. What you see on the website and your mobile phone when you put in the website on there, we built that. We didn't ask no one to do it for us. We did it ourselves. And you decide to jump on schemes to help within the community when it comes to bleed control cabinets for kits that help for people that have been stabbed and they could have a catastrophic bleed. We jumped onto the scheme that other people have been doing in the UK. We was the first to do it in Sussex. Luckily for us, the news jumped onto it. So then when the news jumped onto it, that put us on the TV again. But then now every time something happens in Sussex, the news contact me. So I'm the port of call conversation if a knife crime attack or anything happens that there's been violence. Cole Scott gets phoned.
What we saying,
Can you
Carl?
do the radio?
Yeah.
Can you do BBC? Can you come on ITV? Can you do... So then now that reputation's been built up that he knows his shit. So he's a good person to talk to because he'll be honest and he'll tell the truth.
You can't buy
I
experience.
don't beat around the bush. Like, you know, when you interview like an MP and you ask an MP a straight out question and they go around that
3 minutes later, they still ain't got nowhere near the answer.
I
Yeah.
don't do that. You ask the question, you get the answer.
Yeah.
Simple. I'll say what I think. And then thankfully from that, you get the contact and then you manage to go and sit on Good Morning Britain and sit on live TV in front of however many million people watch that every single morning.
Would you imagine if someone said 10 years ago that you'd be sitting on there and being praised?
No, that would have never have happened.
No.
Because I wouldn't have been able to sit in a room long enough with them to even have a conversation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how I'm seeing all this exposure that we get, I'm seeing that as a massive benefit to make my business better than what it already is.
Yeah.
My business is good now. I've got clients. I work very closely with social services. I've got youths that are in care that I work with.
You're making money?
It's not about the money. It's not. And I don't get paid a wage for doing what I do. I have expenses. I don't get paid a wage. Like you say, some people manage a project. I manage a project. I should be on 35, 40K a year minimum. I ain't even on fucking 10. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because I enjoy doing it. And what I want to try and do, and the whole point about business is build the business for the end result. I'm building the business. In time, I'll get wage. At this moment in time, I'm building it.
Yeah.
It's only a year in. And that year in, you've got to build up your credentials. You've got to have your references. You've got to have a certain amount of kids that you love. What are they called? KPIs, key performance indicators. You've got to have all of that stuff to prove that your project actually works. For then someone to look and be like, do you know what? We've seen you on this, and this. We know that you've worked with them 15 kids there. We know that you've done 150 kids in workshops over the last year in schools. We know you've trained 60 kids in bleed control. We know you've trained 177 adults because I've done all this in a year.
Yeah.
And we know that you've done all
impressive.
that. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to fund you £300,000 for you to employ 2 more people. You train them up, go off there and go and do some work and show us what you could do within 12 months.
That's where I see it. I see it as a government grant.
Yeah, that's my goal. I'm not at that goal yet. I've still got a bit more to do.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm saying I've got a bit more to do. People say, oh, apply for this. No, I'm not ready yet.
What's the website?
www.projectyouth.co.uk.
There you go. We'll whack that in a link anyway. But
There. But that's getting quite a lot of credit. So currently at the moment, so off the youth project side, because you have to do things to let your hair down, yeah? So, and I had an agent, and I applied for a little TV show called Mums on Strike. And this show's like, obviously, my missus does a lot at home, right? And I didn't understand exactly what she did at home, to be fair, until I got left to do it. But it was like, I was thinking to myself, fuck me, I made the wrong decision there, and do you know what I mean? Why did I apply for this show? Why do you always make these decisions, Carl? And you do these irrational things, do you know what I mean? Like these tattoos was an irrational thought. And so I applied for it. They got back to us. They said, yeah, you're amazing, brilliant family. Like, let's get you involved for Channel 5. And I was like, all right, Kushti. So I got involved, and unbeknown to me, my missus had to do a separate contract that after 3 days of them filming in the house, I go out for the day and they fuck her off to a hotel for 7 days. And then I come back in the house and I have to maintain the whole house with the kids to school run and my job, the cleaning and everything else for 7 days whilst my missus ain't there. Now, when I say this, it was fucking one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And I thought, Jesus Christ, I didn't think it was that bad. Do you know what I mean? I'm cleaning the fish tanks. I don't like cleaning the fish tanks. The fish always comes near me and that. And then I'm opening fucking lunch boxes that have been lost in translation somewhere, and you open it and it's vile and you're like spewing up near enough in your mouth. And like, mate, it was an experience. But, you know, we do these kind of things as a little side hustle in a way, like just something to let your hair down.
I mean, obviously, it sounds like a load of fun, but did it also make you actually really appreciate her and like how hard it is for that side?
It did, because when I heard Dad so many times in that week that I've never heard Dad said to me so many times. And I understand now how she feels when it's like, Mum, 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 Mum. And I'm like, babe, she's shouting you. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, instead of me going like, what's the matter, darling?
What's up?
Like,
yeah, what's up?
Babe, will you answer her? Do you know what I mean? So then when she's not there, I'm getting it. Dad, Dad, Dad. So when you're trying to clean the kitchen, Dad, oh no, I've just spilt the juice all over the table. I'm like, fucking hell. Like, do you know what I mean? So you're in that room, now you're in that room and you haven't finished that job. And so I knew what she was, I bet
you slept well though.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was knackered.
Yeah.
I don't think I showered for 2 days for the first 2 days. My hair was all over the place, and as it says on the show, if you watch the show, you'll say that like my main priorities used to be my Barnet and my trainers, and that is the case. I get my hair cut every 5 days. Like I have
really?
Yeah. I have it freshly done every 5 days. Because the thing is, the reason why, number one, I've got a bit of OCD anyway, and number two, I never know when a shoot's coming up. So I'll just keep myself maintained
ready.
Because I always have something come in the diary. And if I haven't... So they could say to me today, oh, we need you tomorrow. For what?
8 o'clock.
We've got this photo shoot to do, or we've got documentary to film. I'm like, fuck, I ain't had my hair cut. So I always make sure that I'm like well-groomed.
You're ready to go, yeah.
Ready to go, yeah. So we did that. Then I got contacted by a researcher to do Trapped in Trauma, which was a good one for me because the trauma is my own trauma. And sharing it publicly on the TV... I'd never done before. I know I've done podcasts, but actual national TV for Channel 4. And that was when I met Conan, and he was doing some therapy for his for the trauma that he'd gone through. He saw his dad shot dead and his stepdad shot dead and that. And I took part in his documentary with him. And then the shows then just started coming in really. And then I got contacted from a researcher for 2020 Productions that was doing the new Rob Rinder series for Britain Behind Bars. So they asked me to take part in that as a contributor for an interview about Shrewsbury Jail, like loads of different jails, looking at the history from the late 1800s, early 1900s to the present day of how different the prisons have changed and what it's like for mental health and what it's actually like in jail, to actually show the experience of what jail's about and how back in the 30s they could still hang you and do mad things, and did they deserve it?
Yeah.
Compared to now of how easy it actually is. So I got an opportunity to take part in that, and I like doing stuff like that. It's something that's really good, and now I've got an opportunity to be filming my own documentary to be commissioned for TV, which I've been filming for 6 months. And when we talk about knife crime and we talk about impact, part of the impact is what I'm covering within the documentary that's not been done before. And a very, very good friend of mine, Martin, sadly lost his child last year. And he passed away July last year, a week ago. It was a year, a week
Ouch.
ago. And a week last Thursday.
What had happened?
So he went to a party in a nice area in Surrey, affluent area. All the houses are worth a lot of money. And he was due to go on a holiday on the Monday with his friends, but the friends that weren't going was going to this party. So he wanted to go and say bye to them. I think it was like a school celebration thing, like they've left school. So they've gone to this big marquee thing up in this girl's mum's back garden, massive acres of land, DJ and whatever else and that, and he'd gone to this party, and these two boys or a couple of boys ended up turning up at this party. They was being a little bit too rowdy with girls and just wouldn't leave them alone, and they'd been asked to leave this party a couple of times. Charlie was asked to, speak to one of these lads and get him to leave because he'd been asked to leave, and Charlie did that. and as a result ended up being stabbed 4 times. And the next time that Martin had any kind of correspondence was a knock on the door from the police saying your son's in critical condition. So they get shot down to Brighton Royal Infirmary,
yeah.
and they walk into a room to see their son with every tube and wire you can imagine hanging out of him. Didn't know the extent of the injuries. His aorta was severed. He was in a bad way. That it's not their world. So Martin was a very successful man. Work-wise, business car, like he had everything. Nice family, kid. Charlie never had a fight in his life. He had an apprenticeship with a company. He was a footballer. He used to love playing football. Never had a fight, and that was the kind of thing that happened to him. And it was through someone's decision to decide to take a knife to a party, a kids' party that's supposed to be about fun, and end up using it on somebody. Why? I don't really get it.
No,
it don't make no sense to me. But the impact that's left is fucking huge.
Yeah.
And if you sit in a room with Martin for 10 minutes, you'll feel it. But
Too young.
I feel like I know Charlie. I've never met the kid. But because I'm around his family, I hear so much about him. Yeah, definitely. He was such a good kid. I actually wish I knew him, because he seemed like a really good lad. All of his friends, oh my God, they've been so supportive.
Yeah.
They have not let the family down at all. In a whole year of Charlie being gone, they've been around that family and they've given them so much support.
But what a waste of life.
Waste of life. Because I'm not even going to go in it, but decided to take a knife and use it on someone that's innocent, that hasn't even got a weapon themselves. He was just trying to get you out because you was
being a pest,
being a knob. Do you know what I mean? Like, who gives you the right to do that? So now the impact that family have got is devastating. He's got PTSD. He has night terrors. He's not got a job. The daughter that was just going through, like, she was at school. The school didn't even know how to approach her. They just ignored her. She's now been left, feeling like, I've lost my brother. She's felt non-supported, supported. Then you've got his wife, Tara, broken. She's lost her baby boy, you know. But at the time that had happened, his brother was just about to announce that his missus is having a baby. So Charlie was going to be an uncle. Never got to find that out. So now, something that should have been a celebration of life, for his brother having a baby, is turned into, it wasn't such a celebration because his brother was dying in a hospital bed, when something that was supposed to be really joyful for him and his missus about having a baby wasn't.
Awful. Just awful.
So that's how much that one action can impact somebody's family.
And I take it they caught him straight away, the other fella.
He got nicked, and he got put on remand. He went guilty, and then decided to change his plea. And the courts allowed him to change his plea, so they had to go for a grueling trial. They had to listen to all the stuff that went on that night, and they listening to witnesses and see video footage of the fight being captured in the background on somebody's phone at the time that it happened. And the parents had to sit through that. And he got sentenced to 16 years. So it was life. He had to serve 16 years. He'd already been in for nearly a year, so which means he's got to serve 15 years, 15 year, 2 weeks, I think. But what we're doing is, as part of my documentary, Martin and family are contributors to my documentary. I've got different elements to my documentary that's something that hasn't been seen on TV. We've captured bits to do with the trial, but we're also capturing diary conversations. I'm not going to go too much into it because it's when you see it. And the process of this documentary is, what I want as an outcome for this documentary is for us as the member of public to stop blaming authorities for how these kids are turning out, because it's not just the authorities' responsibility, it's everybody's. It's everyone's.
Agree, yeah.
It's the whole community's responsibility. It's the school's responsibility. It's the parents' responsibility. It's for any adult that's going to come into any interaction with a child. It's their responsibility.
Starts at home. Like you said
100%.
earlier, starts at home.
Yeah, because it's quite easy for us to pass the buck. The government, they're not doing anything to tackle knife crime. To be honest, what the fuck can they do? They're sat in Parliament. They're not going to be rolling around the streets doing detached youth work, are they? Do Do you know what I mean? Yeah, well, right, admittedly, they could be pumping a bit more money into stuff that they should be pumping money into, and not sending billions of pounds elsewhere. I'm not going to go into too much political detail, but they need to concentrate on what's going on in our own country.
100,000,000%.
So but they're not pumping it into the right places. If they did do that, we'd actually have a fair chance of being able to try and. We would never stop knife crime, but we'd be able to reduce the numbers.
If you're caught with a knife and it's a guarantee you're straight in for 10 years, you've got half a chance of people not carrying, or not as many people carrying.
Do you think?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I think that you need that deterrent where, like, at the minute, we're seeing it. We see it now. I can't remember the instant, but someone's gone out and threatened people with a knife. Didn't even go to prison.
Nah, they get a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
Or community.
How can you get a slap on the wrist for that?
Yeah.
You've gone out with a knife. You've gone out potentially to kill someone because you've got a weapon on you to kill someone.
And that's the issue that we've got. So we have got kids, not the kid that I was just speaking about that got jumped 7 days before. We've got kids that are regular offenders that are going out and they are taking these knives out. And most of them wouldn't give two shits whether they got 10 years for getting caught with a knife or not, because they're in their head, they're intentionally wanting to kill people anyway. So if they had that mindset, why would they go and shove a machete straight through someone's stomach that's going to come out the other side? And they know they're going to get life in prison, but they're still doing it. So that's the proof in the pudding that they don't care. They don't care whether they're going to do it. But what needs to happen is these said people do need to get that time, so the younger generation know that they are going to get sent down, because the scare tactics already being done by these ones. So now the 10-year-olds are going to be looking at the 14, 15-year-olds thinking, shit, they're starting to bang these ones up now. Now we don't want to be carrying them because they are sending people down. So it starts as you go down in the age groups. That's why we look at, when we're doing the early intervention work, is starting it from 10 years upwards, hitting them at year 6 in primary school.
Yeah.
But you have to
Before they start,
because then they're going up to education for the secondary school, like we said earlier. Their behaviour starts to change. They start to see what other teenagers are getting involved in, and they want to get involved in it. They want to, because it looks like it's a fashionable thing.
looks fun, looks cool.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that we've got. So the only thing that we can keep continuing to do is trying to build up them positive relationships with adults again, and get that relationship back. Get it so we influence our children ourselves, so they're not being influenced elsewhere. So then we can then put across to them what's the right and what's the wrong thing. Have these discussions with your kids about, you've just seen in the news about some kid, a poor kid that's just been killed. What do you think about that, Joe? Well, yeah, you'd be able to tell from their response about their behaviour.
Yeah.
So then if you can see their reactions to it, like, oh my God, that's well bad. And then they start asking you questions about, how did that, where was it? Then you can have a full-blown conversation with them. Then you can start going into the criminality conversations about, oh mate, that's so risky. You know, that person's probably going to get 15 years in prison.
Their life's ruined.
Their
mum's life's ruined. Yeah.
So now their ears are going to be opening. So if there's a chance that they could be thinking about taking a knife out, they're going to remember what you've just said to them in the living room. And the chances of them going to take that knife out is going to be pretty slim. So you're starting it already within your 4 walls. Do you know what I mean? It's just about feeling comfortable to have these conversations with your children and not be scared to do so. Search your kids' bedrooms.
So true. So true.
Search them.
Yeah.
It's your bedroom. You own it.
Yeah.
You own the house.
Yeah.
Who paid for the bed? You or your kid? You. Search it. Who paid for the chest of drawers and the wardrobes? You. Search them. You're going into their privacy, but if your kids are acting a little bit dodgy, search their rooms, because there's a reason why they're being dodgy. Are they? Have they got a new phone that you've never seen before? Where's they got the phone from?
Yeah.
Where's that phone from? Oh, are they usually sitting in front of you on the sofa and they're texting quite happily or talking on the phone quite happily, but now when their phone goes off, they're leaving the room and you can't hear what they're saying? Why is that? When they go to sleep, check their phone. Go for their phone. You pay the bill. Do you know what I mean? There's only so much, because you let them start drifting too far.
So true.
There's no pulling them back.
True.
It's impossible. Do you know what I mean? So that's the way that we do it. I don't believe in blaming other people. Us as parents are responsible for our own kids.
Yeah.
And if we don't know I'm not going to say that, like, you know, when your kid leaves the house, you like to believe and trust that your kid isn't up to no good. You'd like to believe that.
But we've all done it.
Of course we have.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's not the case all the time, and your kid is up to no good. But the minute that you find out that your kid is up to no good, you rein it in ASAP before it gets any worse. Because if you don't rein it in and you just batter an eyelid, oh, it's just teenagers being teenagers. Don't say that when he's 15 and he's doing a life sentence. He was such a lovely boy. Well, obviously not, mate.
Yeah,
Like,
didn't say boo to a goose.
yeah, obviously
Yeah.
not, mate, because he's just bloody put something in someone's neck. He weren't a lovely boy, because lovely boys don't do that, do they? Do you know what I mean? So it's just, you know, us as parents have to kind of rein our kids in, really.
Yeah, no, I listen, every pod I get the chance to talk about it, and I always say we are the first point of call, and we have lost power, but obviously there's so much we can still do. You know, there's so much we can still do.
There is.
Bro, there's a lot more broken homes, you know, which
So
again,
many.
which is hard. Even like, I'll split up with my kid's mum. We've not got, me and the ex have not got a great relationship, it's very easy for them to play us off against each other.
Yeah.
You know, she can say one thing to me, she can use me, she can use a mum. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it is, and obviously that's a lot, you know, in this modern day, relationships don't tend to last. So there's a lot of, you know, I don't know the percentages, but there's a huge amount of broken families.
You know, like, for example, kids can be influenced by Kim Kardashian, by the way she looks, for example. All women or all girls want to look like nice and slim and have the big boobs and the fake lips, and they're inspired by other people. So now, instead of being you and being comfortable in your own skin, you want to be like other people. So then you start to change with that, yeah? Reading girls' magazines and wanting to look like the girl that's in that bikini, and that boy wanting to dress like Central C because he's wearing that stuff. It's an influential thing. And that's how it works on the outside of the house. And you're around certain aspects of older generation lads that's been there, done it, and got the T-shirt, that are walking around in the Dior shoes and driving blacked out Range Rovers with massive watches on and big chains, and got really nice phones and got pretty girls that's always in their cars with them all the time. These kids are looking up to these people
Massively.
so, and they want to be like that. That's who wouldn't at that age? You'd want to be like that, but it's what comes with that. It's what the risks are. But then when that happens, your parents, your mum's not going to be able to give that for you at all. And that's where it becomes, where it then starts becoming secretive. And then the child won't be telling everything that the parent, what the mum, everything that he's up to outside. And then therefore the parents now still leading to believe that he's just out there and he's having fun with his friends, because he's not getting arrested.
Yeah.
He's under the radar. He's still quite young. He's not getting in trouble with anything. But actually,
Clueless.
he's slowly building things up, and he is. He's just not getting caught for it. Or he hasn't been attacked, and there's no knock at the door from the police or anything, and he's coming home on time. No, mum, love you. Oh, what have you made for dinner? Oh, that was lovely, mum. Really polite to mum, you know. Mum's blind. She ain't got a clue what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's going on outside.
I know. I've got a friend who sort of found out their kid was serving up. Like, you know, when the police raided the house. Like, crazy. You know, big money.
Big money. And it's
Kid.
a shock.
Kid, 18.
The minute that they knock on your door.
Yeah.
No, not my Steve. Yes, your Steve.
Yeah.
He's currently in the police station at the moment. We caught him with 16 kilos. No, it must be wrong. It must be another person. Oh, no, it ain't. We've
Must
been
be
watching
someone
him for 6 months.
else's. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's the big fish. Is he? Wonder where he got all that money from.
Yeah. I wonder
Buy him a
what.
shopping for
Wonder where his Canada Goose jacket come from. Yeah.
I know this. You know, so it's just one of them.
No.
So, you know, at the end of the day, what I've tried to do is turn a negative into a positive. I have lived a bit of a shitbag life. I've not been a very nice person, and I open, everything's open for that. I have been like that. But what I've tried to do now is change that around, and I've been involved in that life to know how risky that lifestyle is, and it's not a very good lifestyle. It's a fake lifestyle. It only lasts for so long, and the only outcome is death or prison. That's it. Anything that you've made money-wise ain't going to be there when you get locked up, and it ain't going to be there when you're dead.
Yeah.
Simple
Yeah.
as that. And neither's your reputation. That's not going to be there when you're in jail, and it's not going to be there when you're dead.
Yeah.
People will move on quicker. The minute that your funeral's done, that's it. The minute that you've been given your sentence 2 weeks later, you've forgotten about.
Yeah.
It's
3
not-
3 months later, no one even
Yeah,
talks your name.
It's not worth
Yeah.
it. It really isn't worth it. One thing that these kids need to have is consistency in their
Mm.
life all the time.
I
Not
suppose they're pinged from pillar to post.
pillar to post,
like,
and they're passed from this one. Why do you want to come in as an added service to be that inconsistent service? You work with them 1 week, don't see them for 3 weeks, come back again, and you're picking them up and dropping them whenever you feel like it.
Yeah.
Don't work like that.
That's the one
If
thing they
you-
don't need.
No, if you're going to see them on a Monday at 2 o'clock, you're going to see them on a Monday at 2 o'clock every
Religiously.
single week.
Yeah.
And then what you do with them, if they're late by 5 minutes, you're like, why are you late? They're like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, it's 2:05. I've been here since 2 o'clock and you're not here. Oh, well, I forgot the time. So you want me to be consistent with you, but you can't be consistent with me.
Bring it
Works
back.
both ways.
Yeah.
So we're a team, and whatever we're doing within our youth work, I can't do on my own. I have to do it with you working with me. So if we work together, you will get the best solution out of whatever you're trying to achieve. All these goals will be achieved by you if you stick with whatever we stick with. And the time is one of the key points. None of them are late. They're all on time. I did workshops, get
Beautiful.
on this one. I was in the workshop the other week, and they all knew the times that they had to be in the workshops. And a couple of them kept being late. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go a bit militant on them. So one of them come in, and he was 7 minutes late. And I said, 7 minutes late, why are you late? And he said, oh, do you know what, I actually forgot. I said, all right, 7 press-ups. He was like, what? 7 press-ups. I was like, you're late, so you got to do a press-up for every minute that you're late. And he was like, oh, what, really? I said, yeah, bro. And he was like, oh, all right. So he's got down and done his 7 press-ups. Every single week that was going by, even if you're late by 2 minutes, 2 press-ups. And I even did it in front of the teachers, and they was like, what's that? And I said, just a bit of responsibility. I said, it's a bit of laugh, it's a bit of fun, they don't mind it. Because now what they do when they come in, if they're late, they say, sir, I've got 4 to do. They just come straight in and they
Come and
bang
bang
out 4
them out,
press-ups because
yeah.
they know they're 4 minutes late. And it would just turn into
Yeah.
a bit of fun.
But it shows them as a reaction to every action.
There's a consequence to
Yeah.
things in life. And even though like it's only 4 minutes, but if you get a job and you're 4 minutes late every single day, you'll end up with a disciplinary, you'll end up with warnings, and then you'll end up with the sack and you've got no job because they ain't going to put up with that. Timekeeping is one of the key points of having a job.
Massively,
Do you
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, massive,
So
yeah.
it starts them off and means to where they need to be, you know. I mean, it might be a little bit militant by banging them out with press-ups, but they're kids anyway. It's only a bit of fun.
I was going to say, it's not harming them.
No, I'm not making them do star jumps and running around the classroom. You know what I mean? Like, just bang down and get me 4 out. But like, even the teacher was like, "That's brilliant. I can't believe you've got them doing press ups." I'm
Yeah.
like, but that's because you've built up that rapport. They trust me, and I'm just having a bit of fun. They know I'm not doing it maliciously. Do you know what I mean?
And like you say, instead of 4 minutes going to 6 minutes, he's gone to 2 minutes.
2 minutes,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're improving.
And then they're on time.
Yeah.
Like the final session that we was doing, not one of them was late. You know, we did bleed control training with them. They had a bit of fun. They learned how to pack wounds and stuff like that. You know, because we've added that into the educational workshop. So
Nice.
it's all gone and it's all quite beneficial. And everything that we've done has paid off. And you know, we thank everybody that supported our social media throughout the journey. And you know, we've stayed humble. We remember where we come from. There's
Blinding.
no egos around here, mate.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
blinding.
mean?
Yeah. Listen, we're really proud of what you've done.
Thank you.
It's been a really educational pod. I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed seeing where you've come from, but how you've turned your life around and how you're helping. And, it means a lot to us, but it means a lot to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good
But
to
you get
see.
the process of where I go from that bit to that bit to that bit to an end. But this time we've gone all over the place with it. So I bet people when they're watching they can't keep up. Like, where's that bit, this bit? But I think it's just how I tend to like doing podcasts is just brief one, just have chat.
Exactly.
Just like
that, yeah.
just put like conversation. Some people have set questions that they like to ask. And you might see them like looking at a bit of paper and just that, but I like it to be fluid. and
All
just
day
go,
long, yeah.
right, whatever the conversation takes.
See which
go
way it
with
takes you, yeah.
You know what I
See
mean?
which way the wind blows.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I appreciate you asking me on, mate.
No, listen, honestly, I think it's been it's probably the hottest podcast I've ever
Mate, I
done.
swear.
It's about 300 degrees in here, but
I've got a 2-hour drive now.
yeah, well, at least you can have the aircon on.
Okay.
But no, seriously,
Mate,
really
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
I appreciate it.
Top man.
Cheers.